Hello. Good evening. Good evening. I hear that Poly High is in the house. Woo! So government, you gotta sit here for an hour and watch us. That's going to be great. That's good. All right. Well, we're going to start with, we did return from closed session where we did take action, and it was on two important positions in this district with the retirement of two of our really good folks coming up. We have selected as our Assistant Superintendent for Operations, Mr. Sergio San Martin. Mr. San Martin, are you here? There he is, back in the back. Welcome. Mr. San Martin joins us from Moreno Valley Unified, where he serves as District Director of Facilities Planning and Development. And I could read the rest of it, but it's impressive, and I'm sure he'll do a wonderful job. And then I've got to make sure I pronounce this name right. For Assistant Superintendent for Personnel, a young Miss Kylie Ybarra has been selected. Apparently a crowd favorite here, Miss Ybarra. Well, I said, apparently you're a crowd favorite, so welcome. And we're very glad for both of you to join us, and we look forward to the future. We're going to move now to, we're reconvening. We have our Pledge of Allegiance, and we have Aubrey Rhodes. Miss Rhodes, would you come forward? Miss Rhodes, you're a sixth grader at Emerson. You're going to, flags up here, it's all yours.
Please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Eyes on the flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Rhodes, thank you. I'm going to have Mrs. Alavi, our Dean of our board, introduce you a little more formally.
Thank you very much. I want to read a little paragraph about Aubrey. Aubrey Rhodes is the model sixth grade student. She is a motivated learner and a highly organized person. She consistently strives for excellence in all she does, such as when she created a professional website to showcase the works of Julia Child for National History Day. She competed at the district level. She is very involved in the school community, founding clubs such as the Book Club for cross-age reading and the Spinner League to help with student motivation. She has a love for reading and motivates her peers to read by beginning a collection of books for the book club. She has stressed that she wants to be a librarian when she grows up. She is also widely known on campus for her volunteer work. Wendy Folger, our transitional kindergarten teacher, had this to say about Aubrey. She reads books to my class, teaches them science lessons, sets up centers in art. She brings them little treats with her own money. My students adore her and look up to her so much. The teachers at Emerson Elementary School are very proud of Miss Rhodes and can't wait to see her achieve all her goals. Congratulations.
That's right there. I have my mom and dad over there in the front. I have two sisters and two cousins. They're kind of mixed up over there. And I have my teacher, Mrs. Caudell, and Dr. Churchwell and Mr. Bouton.
Wow. Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Thank you, Mrs. Alavi. Half of the broom is Poly High School. The other half is probably here for Woody Rucker Hughes. So we're going to figure out how to, I know Jelani, and I should have said, I apologize to the members. If you have an item you'd like to speak on or on the open discussion, you just go back there where Ms. Martin is in the red outfit and fill out a card and bring it up here, and we'll be sure to call upon you. But to start with our next item, we will have Dr. Hanson, if you would, lead off.
Thank you, President Hunt, members of the board. It's good to be here with you this evening. And I'd like to invite to the podium with me Mrs. Woody Rucker Hughes. recently, along with several of you, I had a chance to travel out to San Bernardino, where Woody was recognized by the Boy Scouts of America with the Whitney M. Young Jr. Service Award, which recognizes outstanding service by an adult individual in the development and implementation of scouting values, opportunities for youth in rural or low-income urban backgrounds, and it just is a wonderful evening to be there and to celebrate that recognition with Woody. And then also several of us had a chance to participate in Woody's second recognition with the Greater Riverside Chambers of Commerce, where she was recognized as the 2015 Citizen of the Year Award. And this evening we want to, and she's one of our own here in Riverside too, but we want to bring Woody here and give her our own recognition ourselves, and it's my privilege to just be part of this recognition this evening for Mrs. Woody
If we
Rucker.
may, Dr. Hanson, let Melania, I know you had something you wanted to add. And if you would.
Here, could you take my note?
Apparently not.
Oh, is that it? Okay. Well, then, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, wait, I thought this was a very unusual day. I offered you to speak, and you weren't going to speak. I thought
I had to make sure my note was
the
approved
world had gone
first.
on its axis the other way or something.
Well, we thought it would be fair if she's already received the awards. It's always best to give flowers while people are living, and this is a living example of our community and someone who's been a shining example and star. So from the Brotherhood and from us, we just want to say congratulations. Thank you so very much.
Hold on, Woody. One second. If the board would join me down front, and then we'll let Woody say a little something. This says to Woody Rucker Hughes, in recognition of your contributions to prevent education barriers and support for student success, every student, every day, thank you for your stellar commitment and dedication to our students, staff, and community throughout the years. April 11, 2016. Microphone's yours.
President Hunt and honorable members of the board, and Dr. Hanson, thank you. It's not every day that someone can have a job that is more, it's a delight to come to every day. Someone once said that, Woody, aren't you getting old? Yeah, I am, but I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. And I have been enjoying that since I arrived in Riverside in 1969. Working with kids, helping families and parents. And because we have an outstanding district, one that keeps in mind always what's best for kids, and to have every kid succeed. That's what we're about. And so the idea that I can work every day and do that, it's the best thing since Swiss cheese or apple. I also get to work with a very clever, and I called him astute and wise gentleman, Tim Walker. And we have rooms next door to one another. I'm very pleased to be working in that department. I've learned so much, and I'm still learning. And Dr. Hanson, let me tell you something.
Sit up.
We, in the community, the word is going around that you are doing such an outstanding job, that the energy in the air is electric, and that we are moving forward And we thank you for that. We thank you. I will keep this award very close to my heart. I am not ready to retire, so don't please make me yet. Don't make me yet. I'll continue to do what I'm doing. If I ever, I'm my worst critic, so if there's ever a time that I slack or slow down in terms of what you would have me do, please tell me, and I'll fix it. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. You know what? I meant to say my daughter and brother could not be here, but my sorors from Delta Sigma Theta and the NACP members and just the community are here in their stead, and I thank them for being here.
Nice, David. Thank you. Thank you, Woody. Who's that old fellow you got walking with you there? That's Mr. Roberts? Yeah. Good to see you, Mr. Roberts. Always good to have you in the house. Ms. Ybarra, your first assignment as a new HR will be to lose her retirement papers and keep losing them. We're going to hear now from our high school representatives, and representing Riverside STEM Academy is Sophia Batista. Sophia. Good evening.
Can I start? Okay. Mr. President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board, my name is Sophia Bautista, and I'm here representing the Riverside STEM Academy today. So a lot has been going on campus. So in order to fulfill LCAP Goal 1, students are now working on an interdisciplinary design challenge to design different aspects of an amusement park. Sorry.
There you go.
Is that better? Okay. So in their engineering class, students build digital and physical models, and then in their language arts class, students write proposals and write commercials using rhetoric. So after the projects are completed, selected groups will present their projects to Riverside City planners. And speaking of language arts, our language arts teacher, Catherine Murray, won the Teacher of the Year Crystal Apple Award a couple of weeks ago. Another thing to mention is that STEM received a grant from UCR to take future AP Environmental Science students on a geology field trip to Anza Borrego. On this trip, Dr. Mary Drosser and other UCR graduate students will take our students to see the San Andreas Fault, the Salton Sea, mud volcanoes, the Sunny Bono Wilderness Area, and an obsidian dome. In order to fulfill LCAP Goal 2, STEM CSF Club was selected to host the Southern Regional Conference in March of 2017. STEM has agreed to partner with, or UCR has agreed to partner with STEM to host the conference next year. Another thing that has been going on is a couple of weeks ago, about 15 high school students and 5 college students from Japan came through the EGGS program to STEM and stayed with host families. The Press Enterprise tagged along to one of our events and actually wrote an article about it. In August, STEM is sending 2 more students to Japan. And since college is quickly approaching for our juniors, they have gone on trips to University of California, Los Angeles, University of California, Irvine, and the California Institute of Technology. So in order to fulfill LCAP Goal 3, some of our students actually went back to Caltech to participate in the State Science Olympiad competition on April 2nd. Although STEM only placed in one event, it is still a feat that there is a STEM team competing at the state level, since we've only had a high school team for 3 years. Another thing to mention is that STEM's first prom is on May 21st at UCR at the Barn. The theme is Footloose, so ASB has decided to call it A Night to Cut Loose. And then one last thing to mention is that STEM and UCR have paired up yet again to create a tutoring program open to STEM high school students 5 days a week from 3 to 5. Students walk to UCR and can show up to help in a range of subjects from undergraduate students. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you,
questions?
Sophia. Yes, any questions? No? How far is the walk from your campus?
About a mile, I think,
Oh.
ish. Yeah, it's not bad.
Depends how old you are, Sophia. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you again. Take care. Next, representing John W. North High School is Destiny Boyer. Welcome, Destiny.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. My name is Destiny Boyer, and I am a senior at John W. North High School. I am United Students League School Plus 2 coordinator. My responsibility this year has been to encourage involvement and school activities in coordinating and tracking the involvement of freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Tonight I will be presenting the John W. North's board report. Neche Vincent, our rep to the board, is currently visiting the University of Pennsylvania, where she has been accepted to attend college. So as we are entering the final weeks of our school year, we continue to work toward achieving our 3 LCAP goals. So our first LCAP goal, provide high quality teaching and learning environments for our students. By doing this, we had a one-day visit from the WAS mid-cycle. Currently, our teachers are in the steps of addressing their action plan, so we will be hearing back from them soon. Also, during spring break, we did get new carpets, so it is a lot easier to concentrate in class because it smells better. So, yeah, and we are also in the process of creating sorry, I'm a little bit nervous if you cannot tell, a new seating area outside of the library where students can sit, socialize, and study, of course. Our second LCAP goal is preparing all students to be college, career, and world ready upon graduation. So upcoming, we have our senior exhibition, which is an annual event that all seniors are required to do. This is presenting a project to not only North teachers and North advisors, but also to community members as well. So we present a project that we have done throughout either out of all of our 4 years at John W. North. And personally, I am doing mine on our school dance called Midwinter, so Star Wars theme, so that should be fun. We also have our middle years program project, which is similar to senior exhibition. It is for sophomores that is preparing them for their senior exhibition. And we also have our Law and Protective Services Academy. They went to a senior trip in Sacramento, so from the pictures that I've seen and the things that I've heard, they really enjoyed themselves. Our third LCAP goal is to fully engage students, parents, and the community in support of short and long-term educational outcomes. Through this, we have our parent-teacher conferences this week. This is our second one this year, and it also gives parents opportunity to have a full, great barbecue meal and just to talk to their students, to their kids' teachers. As you can see, I gave you a newspaper. This is our competition issue, and our newspaper and journalist students will be traveling to Los Angeles to enter the National High School Journalism Competition, which we hope they will bring a national title again this year. We also just quickly congratulate our basketball team, our boys basketball team, in winning the CIF Division I AA championship and qualifying for the state semifinal, as well as 2 members from our speech and debate team and 2 students that have qualified for State History Day. And one last thing. I know my time has rubbed. I'm sorry. We have been keeping track of our freshman link and how they have been involved in campus. So our numbers are approximately 500 9th grade students in attendance. We have 259 reported that they have joined at least 1 club or sport, and 126 reported that they had joined 2 or more clubs or sports, as well as over half of the class reported that they have attended at least 1 or 2 after-school activities. And that's it. Any questions?
Destiny, where are you going to be going to college? What's your plans?
My plan is to attend University of Nevada of Las Vegas, majoring in hospitality management.
Very good. Well, and tell us, how do you're coordinator for the Plus 2 program?
Yes, School Plus 2 program. It's a new position this year.
So what's your pitch to a young freshman? I'm a young freshman, goofy and everything. What's your pitch on Plus 2? I know Mrs. Alavi and I are very proud of this. We want to hear how it's going.
Well, my freshman year, I was involved in student government, and I can honestly change the entire perception of high school. You're involved, and you're having such a great time. It makes you want to come to school, and not only you get to enjoy all the events that we host, but you're involved and you make new friends, and high school is much more enjoyable because of it.
Very good. Any other questions for Destiny? Destiny did a great job filling in, and tell your counterpart congratulations on the University of Penn.
Thank you.
And congratulations on UNLV. Thank you very much, Destiny. Now from the Riverside Polytechnic High School, Madeline Tovar. Madeline? Madeline, hang on just one second. If you, Beth and all of y'all, we got some seats down here. If you'd like to come down front before Madeline starts, come on, I'll call you out now so you can sit down. Just so you don't stand the entire. Art teachers that stand a long time get feisty, so we just deal with that. Madeline, thank you for being here tonight. Tell us about Poly.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, and other members of the board. My name is Madeline Tovar, and I will be representing Poly High School tonight. LCAP goal number 1. The first topic I'll be addressing is Social Media Awareness Day. Social Media Awareness Day will be held at Poly High School, which will be sponsored by our very own Social Justice Council. Multiple guest speakers will be there, such as Deborah Postal from the District Attorney's Office, Ryan Railsback, and Casey Sutton. These speakers will be discussing topics such as the negative effects that social media has. The whole day, social media will be unblocked from students, allowing them to delete all negative content from their pages that might negatively affect their college and/or career futures. I unfortunately had nothing to report for LCAP goal number 2, so I'm moving on to LCAP goal number 3. LCAP goal number 3, April 12th, which is tomorrow, ASB will be hosting another tailgate for both softball and baseball's game of the season. ASB sent out invitations to students who were not active in the Heroes tracking system and invited them to the tailgate with personal invites. We will have barbecue and t-shirts for the first 150 students who arrive. We will be tracking the number of students who attend through the Heroes tracking system. On a side note, Poly Choir this past weekend was invited to Seattle for a competition where they won gold, which was the highest title awarded there. I was able to talk to one of the chamber singers, Cole Parker, and he said it was a great experience. We were able to admire the great music and enjoy the many museums the city had to offer. Oh, and we drank lots of coffee.
Glad you added that last one. Thank you.
Poly High School hired a new football coach, Coach Dewitt, and many of the football boys are excited for what the new coach has in store for them this next upcoming season. That's all I had for this report. If there's any questions.
Any questions? I understand Coach Dewitt was part of the ESPN's Play of the Year. Did you know about that?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, you know how we're all very proud of Poly puts on that special football game every year for our special education students and all. And well, I think that you'll find that Coach DeWitt will fit in very well. You ask your good principal out there, Dr. Rowe, to show you y'all that clip. It's heartwarming, and it says a lot about the kind of person we're bringing to Poly.
All right.
Thanks so much for your
Thank you.
Take care. And last but not least, from the blue and white, the Ramona Rams, Alexander Silva. Alexander, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Very good. Good to have you here.
Good evening, President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. My name is Alexander Silva, and I'm the school board representative for Ramona High School. For goal number 1, to provide a high-quality teaching and learning environment for students, we have recently implemented new programs in order to ensure students will succeed within their various classes, specifically within their math and AP classes. After schools on Mondays and Wednesdays, we have math teachers opening their classrooms in order to tutor students and provide additional help for any problems they may have in their class. Additionally, we also have students from UCR who come to assist in tutoring our students in all levels of math, so from Math 1 all the way up to BC Calculus. Furthermore, at least once a month, we have study sessions especially designed for AP classes in order to give special preparation for the AP testing that is coming up in May. And within these special study sessions, we have one-on-one time with our teachers, so they're able to review things they think are especially important for the upcoming test. Also, on March 3rd and 4th, we sent students to UCR for a special particle physics conference housed in the Physics and Astrology Department. During this conference, the students learned about various parts of the particle physics field and the special research that was being conducted in the Large Hadron Collider. Ramona was one of the 5 high schools to participate within this conference. For goal number 2, to prepare all students to be college, career, and world ready upon graduation, our AVID program was able to take 50 freshmen along with 8 seniors to the ropes course in Thousand Pines with the aid of the LCAP funds. This rope course excursion took place in order to motivate the freshmen to continue towards a successful high school completion and to keep track on the college path. During this field trip, the seniors were able to share their high school experiences and give advice for the freshmen to ensure they stay on track with their high school careers. Over spring break, we were able to send 34 of our Health Bioscience Academy students to the annual HOSA State Leadership Conference. They competed against 2,825 other HOSA students in a variety of competitive events. They also attended workshops and performed community service. We also had one student competing as a top 10 finalist within his own event. For goal number 3, fully engaging students, parents, and the community in support of short and long-term educational outcomes. On Saturday, April 9th, it was a huge competition. There was a lot of huge accomplishments for our winter programs here at Ramona. We hosted our annual drumline competition here at Ramona with 29 competition ensembles. Our marching drumline won first place in the Scholastic Open Division. Also, in our only second year of existence, our concert percussion received first place in their division as well. Our color guard also performed at Santiago High School in Corona, where they once again received first place in their own division. Are there any questions that I may help answer or address?
Any questions? Oh, no, thank you, Alexander. Appreciate it. The Rams are doing well, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much. Sandra, I got a seat down here if you'd like to take it. Okay, all right. So now we're going to hear from our District Superintendent, Dr. David Hanson.
Yes, thank you, President Hunt, and again, members of the board, and welcome to all of the visitors that are at this board meeting. It's nice to look out and see the seats filled. I hope everyone had a restful spring break and you had a chance to fill your bucket and to spend some time with family and friends. And it's good to be back as we go into the final stretch of the school year and we plan to finish strong. On that note, I'd like to congratulate Abraham Lincoln High School recently, who received the exciting news from California State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Tom Torlakson. He announced that Lincoln received the Model Continuation School Award. Lincoln was recognized for its innovative teaching approach that enables students with diverse needs to complete their high school education. And Principal Pamela Mashana said of this award, "We're overjoyed to see all the hard work on the part of our teachers and staff being recognized by the state's top education official." And for those of you that may not be aware of what the Model Continuation School Award is, that's the same thing as receiving like a Distinguished School Award recognition for our continuation schools. And so congratulations to Lincoln and Pamela Mashana for their hard work. And although I don't see her, it's worth recognizing, right before spring break, Pamela called and shared with us the good news that she is now Dr. Mashana. She successfully defended her dissertation PhD from Claremont University. So congratulations to Dr. Mashana. I'd like to invite our Chief Academic Officer, Mays Kakish, to give a brief update to the board on the district's credit rating. And then I'd like to have Renee Hill follow her, because we're just getting into the window of testing, and Renee is going to share with the board all the things that are going on from her division in regards to testing. They're going to wrap up with Mr. Antonio Garcia giving a brief update from curriculum instruction. So, Ms. Kakish.
Thank you. We were just laughing because you said Chief Academic Officer. I just looked at her.
You called it Chief Academic. He's under a lot of pressure.
I was. I would like to update the board on a recent visit. First of all, sorry, good evening. I'm also, it seems like I'm not starting on the right place. Good evening, members of the board. I'm here to report to you results of our trip. Dr. Hanson and I went up to San Francisco on February 29th to visit two rating companies, Moody's and Standard & Poor's. And our mission was to really present information to them to take the negative outlook from Riverside Unified School District previous rating. And just happy to report that they affirmed our rating, which is AA2 rating for Moody's and A+ for Standard & Poor's. And they did take the negative outlook out, and we have a stable outlook right now. So this is positive news, as it puts us in a better position as we approach an initiative for general obligation bond in the future. If we're successful, we can be set up to another upgrade by both companies next January. So we're very happy to report to you that it was a successful trip.
Good evening, members of the board. I'd like to update you a little about testing. Our spring testing window has opened. In our district, we allow each school to set its testing days so that they can schedule around school events and other district tests that might be happening. I'd like to thank principals and testing coordinators. Testing coordinator is an extra duty that teachers take on to help at the site. So many times it's testing coordinator. If the school has an assistant principal helps. And the principal, along with our help desk analyst and innovation department, have checked out many, many devices and access points and uploads and abilities to log on to the system. So schools will have their various schedules from now through the end of May. In some cases, overlapping with AP testing, for example. And then at the end of the year will be the district-wide testing for some subjects. While we no longer have annual yearly goals under No Child Left Behind, we still do have a 95% participation requirement. So the teams will be monitoring that throughout and be available for troubleshooting at the sites.
Good evening, President Hunt and members of the board. This evening, the board will be considering the approval of 15 different courses, and we're really excited to bring those forward to you for approval, for consideration of approval. I'd like to highlight a set of those courses here that you will be considering, those being American Sign Language 1 and American Sign Language 2. We're all aware that Riverside has a very large deaf community that's spread throughout the city. Riverside is the home of the California School for the Deaf, which opened in 1953, a residential school serving over 500 students a year. Often, deaf families relocate to Riverside to be near their children, and many of the graduates remain residents in Riverside. So because of this, and because of the opportunity that this will afford our students, we see the value in teaching our students the fundamentals of American Sign Language. Students will not only learn how to communicate with the deaf, they will also gain an understanding of the deaf culture as part of the course's curriculum. All of the high schools are exploring the viability of offering American Sign Language next year and the year after. We are anticipating that 3 to 4 of the high schools will likely be offering it in the fall of 2016-17. This course will be submitted to the UC Office of the President for A through G approval. Pending approval of the course by the board. I'd like to thank Lisa Kells and Daryl Hansen for their work in bringing these courses forward for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. And that concludes my report.
Aren't you leaving something out? Announce about Lincoln? Your grandson. What number is this?
The other Lincoln. Thank you, Mr. Hunt. And if you want to see family pictures, I'll let you see later. But we received a phone call yesterday from our daughter number 2, and she gave birth to our 4th grandchild. Lincoln Joseph Alatorre was born Sunday morning at 5 o'clock, 7 pounds, 20 and a half inches long, and mom and baby are doing great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I now take any public comment. I don't seem to have any cards. Is there any public comment? Oh, we do. Sorry. I should ask my clerk to pass them. All right. Let me just look at them real quick. Just a moment. Special, okay. Thank you. Thank you. No, you're right. That was my mistake. So while I'm looking at these cards, we'll get back to them, we're going to have our Poly Cluster presentation. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for keeping your old president alert. That's right. Or if I get shot. So, Mr. Reller, come tell us about the Poly Cluster. You're the principal at Gage Middle School.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Hunt, Dr. Hansen, and members of the board. I'm the principal of Matthew Gage Middle School, and I'll be presenting for the Poly Cluster this evening. I'd like to first take some time to introduce our outstanding principals in the cluster And I'm going to start with Miss Patricia Tran, who's at Alcott, and they'll stand as I call their name. Dr. Laura Nelson, Bryant. Miss Erica Square, Castleview. Miss Annette Respitic, Magnolia. Miss Kirsten Reno Frosto, Washington. Miss Linda Daltrey, Victoria. Miss Vivian Lee, Pachapa. And of course, myself at Matthew Gage Middle School. Miss Lynn McCowan, Central Middle School. And Dr. Michael Rowe at Pauley High School. I knew that would get a rise. The Pauley Cluster principals have been meeting this year and discussing a question of how we can assist students in the transition from elementary school to middle school on to high school. And we have discussed systems that we can put in place to assist those students and intervene when needed. And we're going to be showing a video here that you'll see examples of what each school is doing to support our goals of a high-quality environment. All students will be college and career ready, and we engage our students, parents, and community. Robert Putnam, the author of Our Kids, The American Dream in Crisis, writes about the opportunity gap. Our staff and community work each and every day to increase student opportunities by creating a consistent, safe, and inspirational learning environment by educating the whole child and focusing on connections. The Poly Cluster staff is accomplishing this through highly engaging lessons in our classrooms, support and interventions such as the math pullout at Central Middle School, John Wooden's Pyramid of Success for Character Education at Alcott Elementary, the K2 Institute at Castleview, Structured Early Literacy Intervention Block at Pachapa. We also have CTE programs that enhance our school environment, such as Woodshop at Gage, video production at Poly. We integrate the arts, both visual and performing. We have drama club and show choir at Castleview, where Poly students come to that school and support our students with the stage, with the lights, and with the sound. We have ballroom dancing and drama club at Washington Elementary. And our teachers take part in collaboration and professional development to design engaging lessons. Our principals in the cluster even attend professional development together, such as the Visible Learning Training by John Hattie. It is also important to mention that the RUSD Maintenance and Operations Division plays a big role in enhancing the environments at each of our schools. The Poly Cluster is working on ensuring that our students graduate from high school, college, and career ready. We provide opportunities for students in different programs and activities such as Avid Elementary, No Excuses University, Avid at the secondary schools, Dual Language Immersion, which will be transitioning to Gage Middle School in the 17-18 school year from 2 of our feeder schools, Integration of STEM, Career Days, Science Camp, Core Knowledge, GATE, Honors Classes, and AP Classes. One of our agreements as principals in the Poly Cluster is to administer the Universal Screener to our students to help provide data to the next level for proper placement of students. The Poly Cluster is working on engaging our students and parents each year as principals work to increase involvement in the parent groups. Many of the principals have their own student groups as well, like their student advisory councils. Alcott even has a foundation to support their efforts. Students are engaged through the use of activities and VAPA funds to take students on field trips and increase the number of VAPA opportunities for students. Victoria Elementary is also supporting the arts by having monthly enrichment days for art. Poly High School students also help engage our students at the elementary and middle school level by coming to the schools, talking to the students about high school and what it takes to be successful. Many parents are engaged at Castleview and help with art lessons on certain days. Each of the cluster schools engage their community through the use of social media and other technologies such as Remind.com and Parent Direct. But it's not without challenges. In the Poly Cluster, we believe that our challenges are the opportunities for our students and community. One of the big challenges that we see is emotional stress as it relates to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Students not only need their psychological safety needs met, but students also have the need of belonging, self-esteem, self-actualization. This is where our Student Assistance Program counselors will work to help address our challenges so to support our students' well-being and needs. The power is within the Poly Cluster. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Carrie, tell me how you personally or as professionally getting ready to adapt into the dual immersion for 7th and 8th grade. Is that next year, you said?
Not this coming year. It'll be the following year.
Okay.
We have been meeting with Michelle Mitchell as the steering committee for dual language immersion. We've been analyzing staffing with HR. I've looked at facility needs at Gage Middle School, and we have plenty of facilities available to house dual language immersion. And we have the teachers that are needed for dual language immersion in Spanish, and we'll be crossing the bridge with respect to the other teachers that are needed with the ability to teach in Spanish.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions? All right. Your cluster going to stick around for a little bit?
I hope so.
All right, so do we. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Apparently that was a signal for the Poly students to exit, so we'll let them go. All right, now we're going to, just as we get settled here, we're going to take public comment. For those that are providing public comment, please know that under the laws of California, the board is not allowed to respond or comment because it's not an agendized item. We can't ask a clarifying question, but please don't take our silence as an attitude or anything else. We're very interested in what you have to say. First is Ms. Krista McGee, here to speak on special education. Ms. McGee.
Before I begin, I would just like some of the group of parents from special education students with disabilities to stand up so I can speak on their behalf.
Thank you for being here.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Good evening, President Hunt, Dr. Hansen, and school board members. I am here as a parent of a student with a disability and a community member to support other parents of students with disabilities. It is a privilege to address you on behalf of our community. We are here to bring your attention to some of our concerns of our families. We measure the health of our soul by how we treat the most vulnerable population among us. The students with disabilities and their parents are the most vulnerable population within our district. They are given procedural safeguards and protections under the federal law, IDEA 2004. This federal law mandates a free and appropriate public education. In no way should the district exercise their might of their legal team to diminish the rights of these vulnerable students and parents. We are finding this, unfortunately, to be true in our community. We are finding this especially true with our limited English-speaking families of students with disabilities. There is a pervasive, intimidating attitude with some of the members of our SELPA towards these parents when they attempt to assert their rights under IDEA. They're experiencing intimidation, denial, and delay during the IEP process. The core of the statutes of IDEA, however, is the cooperative process between the parents and the schools. We hope, and we'd like to emphasize the word cooperative as our theme throughout this evening tonight. We know that a healing relationship begins with understanding and compassion. I genuinely believe this evening you will see and understand our struggles covered by the politics of fear and anger. This unconscious thought process influences our narrative and this culture. It will be shared in the stories of the unjust treatment of our families, and it is our mission to change this culture and redefine that different is not less. We are here collectively as a compassionate and genuine population. We value social justice, and we invite you to become open to hearing our stories. But let's begin first with some facts. IDEA mandates cooperation between the states and federal government under the guise of cooperative federalism. So in sticking with the cooperative thing, let's look at the facts regarding the individual IEE evaluations and the SELPA's policy that they have adopted regarding the IEEs. We'd like to bring this to the attention of the board because this policy significantly places limits and it diminishes the rights to an IEE under federal law. Let me share a Supreme Court case decided November 14th, 2005, Schaefer versus Wiest. Justice O'Connor said it best when he delivered the opinion of the Supreme Court regarding IEEs. He said they have the right to an independent evaluation of their child. The regulations clarify this entitlement by providing that the parent has a right to an independent evaluation at public expense if the parent disagrees with the evaluation obtained by the public agency. IDEA ensures that parents have access to an expert who can evaluate all the materials that the school must make available and who can give an independent opinion, and that they are not left to challenge the government without a realistic opportunity to access necessary evidence without an expert with the firepower to match the opposition. They have a right to examine the records relating their child and to obtain an independent evaluation of their child. The fact is, we have the right to equivalent opportunity when it comes to this. Your policy that you have adopted limits parents' rights to an expert who can give an independent opinion. Families are not asking for the universe of possibilities. The SELPA policy contradicts federal law. It gets very dicey. It's not okay to deny, delay, and intimidate families. The families are experiencing devastation, and it is social injustice.
Ms. McGee, I'm going to give you another minute to wrap up. Go ahead.
Our next step would be to allow us to elaborate on remedies and resolutions to help us with our concerns. Please allow us the opportunity to work cooperatively and explain further, and we encourage the board to support our community. The families are experiencing frustration and inequality, and I encourage you to open your hearts to compassion for these families and to be what we call a stone catcher. And I have copies of the policy and the federal law regarding IEEs to share with you whenever you.
How about copies of your comments?
And copies of my comments also,
All right,
yes.
very good. If
Yeah.
you could give
Thank
those
you
to
very much.
Mrs. Lock-Dawson, our clerk,
Okay.
that'd be great. And thank you for those heartfelt words. Now we have Miss Martha Oliva, also to speak on special education.
Good evening,
Good evening.
members of the board.
Pull the mic a little bit to you, Miss Oliva, if you would there. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a little bit sick, and my English is a little bit slow. My name is Marta Oliva, and I am a mother of 2 children, Alejandra and Joshua, who is autistic. They currently attend the schools in the Riverside Unified School District. I'm a president of a group of parents with the students in special education, which they're here. They also belong to the same district. I participate with the ICUC, Inland Congregations United for Change. Also, I'm the parent leader of representing the Ramona High School. And I have attended many different educational events, such as conferences, educational festivals, forums, etc. Everything related to the issue of special education. I also volunteer assisting accompanying the parents to the IEP, Individual Program of Educational Programs, as much as I can. Right here is where I realized that our special education system is not working properly. Since we encounter great difficulties, for example, we don't openly educate parents as what is the IEP means, so we don't understand the program properly. And also seems like the staff doesn't explain us how the IEP works, or they're not prepared also. There is a great miscommunication by staff and professionals to parents, and we feel staff is not always honest and patient. There's lack of interest in many cases to actually help children attain educational achievement. The services related to disability are not appropriate and sometimes denied. Many times they're denied. And most of the cases, the same 3 services are offered, like speech therapy, 25 minutes per week, occupational therapy, 25 minutes per week, or the program Read 180, which is not working also for our kids. Today I'm here to ask our special education program be looked at as essential part of the team. We, the parents, must know how federal resources are used in the education of our children and make us share the distribution. We want to ensure funds are used in education excellence, not to pay prestigious lawyers on lawsuit. How do you say that?
That's,
Lawsuit.
in any language is tough. So that's all right.
My language is so
Yeah,
bad.
that's all
Sorry. We must work together if we want to include and integrate our children and adolescents to achieve in society, to create an independent future as the ideal law talk about. This is a very difficult road for us as parents to learn about the difficulties of our children. And finally, I want to appreciate your attention, and thank you very much for listening to us as a
Thank you,
parent.
Ms. Oliva. Thank you very much. And thank you for your volunteering with those other parents. It's very Very wonderful of you.
I do as much as I can.
Yes, ma'am, it sounds like you do.
Thank you.
Next is Ms. Nicole Rimport.
Good evening, President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, members of the board. My name is Nicole Kimport, and I have 2 children enrolled at Highland Elementary School with varying disabilities. I've been trying to navigate the IEP process for the better part of 2 years now. It has been 6 months since my last initial request for an IEP. On February 9, 2016, my child was determined eligible for special education and related services. As of today's date, he has not received any services of any kind. This by far exceeds the time limit set forth in the Federal IDEA Act as to not delay services. During the last 6 months, I have dealt with many delays, assessments I had requested that failed to be completed, and lengthy responses with no concrete answers. I feel I am being manipulated to see what I know and how far I am willing to go, or if I will even take it to court and take a settlement. I feel like I'm being threatened with a take-it-or-leave-it approach. I cannot stand down and surrender my rights, but I feel this is what I'm expected to do. Recently, in requesting an IEE, I was pressured on multiple occasions to give reasoning on my request. I should not have to disclose my reasoning when trying to have equal participation in the process. Only after 2 months and multiple emails was I granted a conditional approval for an IEE based on the conditions that the district approve the assessor, and only if the district approved the assessor. These are not my rights, and it shouldn't be this hard to work as a team to benefit a child, especially when that child needs a team for educational achievement. I have quickly learned that I am not alone in my feelings, and that is why I am here to stand together with my fellow special education parents and ask that you hear our concerns and address them appropriately. I hope that you can see that our voices are strong, and we are asking for you to help us make change happen for all our USD students. Thank you.
Ms. Rimport, I was going to ask a clarifying question. You said you were pressured. Is it you were pressured by the office or the worker you're assigned?
For clarification?
Yes, ma'am.
We've been back and forth about 6 times, and repetitively the same question was asked, and I was forced to give repetitively the same answer because that was initially my response, but they wanted to dig deeper to see what more could be offered to appease my request instead of, stating that these are my rights as a parent of special education. So,
thank you for that answer, ma'am. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Aguilar, Ms. Luisita Aguilar. I'm sure I murdered that, but.
So I will be translating for her simultaneously or back and forth.
And how do you say her first name properly?
I'm sorry?
How do you say her first name?
Yeah, I have trouble with that too. Because the nombre.
Mi nombre es Lesbia Aguilar.
Okay. That clarified it.
Solo voy a...
Okay. Buenas noches, mi nombre es Lesbia Aguilar. Tengo 2 hijos.
You can go ahead and take the mic
Escuela
for yourself if
Ramona.
you'd like.
Mi hijo pequeño está en especial, Victoria.
So good evening, my name is Lestia Aguilar, and I have 2 children, one who goes to Ramona High School, and the youngest, who's actually in special education, goes to Victoria Elementary.
Casi que enfrentamos de barreras para poder pedir educación especial, pero no podemos, calidad para mi hijo, y he pedido evaluación. Respecto a mi hijo, está bien. Yo solo quiero ver el desarrollo educativo emocional.
So I myself recently started with the special education program with my youngest son who goes to Victoria, but up until now I have not confronted any issues or any barriers. I do have, she shared with me earlier, she has her IEP meeting tomorrow, but I want to make sure that my son is not only doing well, I want to not hear that my son is only doing well, I want to see that he is developing well in his education and an emotional well-being.
Para terminar, a mí me ha gustado tener un grupo de apoyo como lo que hemos formado como padres, como hijos, como los hijos de educación especial. Hay mucha información especial, valiosa, que comparte en nosotros, y siempre otros padres y piden que nosotros sigamos formando más hasta mejor. Thank you. Gracias.
So just to finish, I do enjoy being part of the parent group where we support each other, that recently was formed, right, to support us in issues of special education. There's a lot of valuable information that we share amongst each other, and we've been able to encourage other parents to join, and I ask that we continue to ask to inform other parents so that we can be better prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aguilar. Appreciate it. Next is Mercedes Max.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Merced Maxe, tengo 4 hijos.
Good evening, my name is Merced Maxen. I have 4 children.
Van a las escuelas de Ramona High School y Castle View. El mayor, el que va a la Ramona,
And my oldest who goes, one of them goes to Ramona High School and one goes to Castleview, and the oldest one goes to Ramona High School.
está en la educación especial. Mi experiencia como madre fue al darme cuenta que mi hijo no fue evaluado a tiempo para recibir una educación gratuita y apropiada.
And with my oldest son, my experience as a mother has been to find out that my son has not been evaluated properly and on time to receive a free and appropriate education.
Hasta hace 4 años atrás que fui a un taller educativo y una persona me ayudó a entender un poco la evaluación educativa.
I did not find out about this until 4 years ago when I went to education workshop where a person told me how to better understand the education evaluation of my son, and this is where I found out.
Me di cuenta que mi hijo está a un nivel extremadamente bajo. Como madre preocupada, por más que yo les comunicaba a los maestros que mi hijo no estaba avanzando.
So this is where I found out that my son was extremely behind, and as a worried mother, I would communicate this to the staff to ensure to let them know that I saw my son was not advancing.
Yo nunca recibí apoyo ni de los maestros, director y distrito. Tuve que salir afuera a la comunidad para educarme.
I never found the support I needed within the teachers, director, and the district, and so I went outside of that to the community to better educate myself and find resources.
Y buscar recursos. En general, cuando empecé a educarme, comencé a implementar mis derechos. Me han hecho sentir como que no sabía lo que estaba pidiendo.
And in general, when I started to educate myself on this, I started to implement my rights. But then when I would implement them, they made me feel as if I didn't know what I was asking for.
He sentido mucha intimidad de parte del distrito, aunque todavía ha sido tan difícil para mí entender el proceso del IEP y evaluaciones.
And so I have felt the intimidation from part of the district, even though I still don't know the whole process, and it's been difficult for me to understand the process of the IEP and the evaluations. For everything that I have tried, I still realize that there hasn't been much change being implemented in my son's education.
El programa de educación especial, como está escrito, no, como está escrito en la ley, no se está implementando.
So therefore, I see that the special education program is not being implemented as it should be and as it is written in the law.
Por tanto, batallar en la educación de mi hijo, al no ver avance educativo, me ha llegado a enfermar.
For seeing all the frustration and seeing that there are no changes, I resulted in getting sick myself.
Hasta el punto de darme parálisis facial. Ningún padre debe de llegar al extremo de lo que yo estoy pasando. Gracias.
So as I mentioned, I recently became sick to the point where I got my half of my face was paralyzed, and so I recently dealt with that. And no, I ask that no parent, I believe that no parent should be having to go to this extreme and have to be dealing with what I'm dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maxim. Thank you, young lady, for translating. Appreciate it. Next is Ms. Sarah Dement. Also in special education.
President Hunt, Dr. Hansen, and esteemed school board members. My name is Sarah Dement, and today I come to speak to you as a mother of a 7th grader with special needs, as your community advisory chairperson, and most importantly, I come to speak to you today as a deeply concerned community member who is incredibly invested in RUSD because I am a product of RUSD. I attended its schools for my entire K-12 education. Recently, I was invited as your CAC chairperson, along with other CAC members, to speak at the Family Resource Center about our committee and our efforts to educate and support the families of special needs children in RUSD. What I heard when I attended the special education support group meeting concerned me greatly. I heard detailed accounts about the non-collaborative and intimidating experiences that these Spanish-speaking families were having while dealing with the IEP process and the RUSD Special Education Department. Keep in mind, I'm not a stranger to the tough journey that parents of special needs face, for I have had to ask the tough questions at an IEP. I have had to keep diligent records. I have had to research special education law, and unfortunately, I've had to deal with the stigma attached to that which comes with being a parent that knows their rights. But what I realized that day that I visited the Family Resource Center was although my struggles with navigating through special education were hard and often intimidating, they were mild compared to the struggles these parents were facing with an added language barrier. Add to that language barrier policies and procedures that are executed in a way that parents are made to feel like their voices are being stifled instead of heard. These parents' testimonies described how they were plagued with stress, made to feel intimidated instead of welcomed as meaningful participants of their child's education. And although they were holding true to their beliefs about their children's needs and what was not working, they were not finding solutions and had lost faith and trust that the special education department was truly supportive and understanding of their child's needs and their personal parent beliefs that their children could do more and be better with proper support and services. School board members and Dr. Hansen, I believe this is a small sampling of the RUSD special needs families who are feeling this way. We hear from several parents every month, both Spanish-speaking and English-speaking, that are overwhelmed and intimidated by the experiences that they are having when going through the IEP process. These families are tired of the obstacles and the intimidation that they are presented with when they challenge or question recommendations or offers. This cannot continue. All parents should be seen as meaningful participants in their child's education. Parents should not have to seek advocates and legal counsel every time something is not working for their child with an IEP. The IEP process is meant to be collaborative, where parents are seen as meaningful participants and their thoughts and opinions are valued, even if other team members do not share the same opinion.
Mr. Mead, can you wrap it up about
Yes.
30? Very good.
Please keep in mind that these parents are simply asking for what we all want, is for our children to be competent, productive citizens of this community. That's what they're asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mead. Appreciate it. Next is Sandra Huerta. Sandra Huerta. On special education. Ms. Huerta.
Hello. Before the start, I'm sorry, my English not very well. I'm gonna try to do my best.
Okay. Do we have a translator?
Good afternoon, distinguished member of the Board of Education of Riverside Unified School District, special education staff, teachers, parents, and community who's joining us today. My name is Sandra Huerta. I have 2 children at Riverside Unified School District. I'm a mother of 3 children, one of which is now in college. We have living in Riverside since November 2005. I start to get more active involved in education of my children since that time. My son, Eric Huerta, is a special education student, current in the 9th grade at Poly High School, but we learned about his learning challenges when he began kindergarten. When I asked the teacher involved in his education or make comment to them to help my children, they only answer they give me was, "Don't worry, not all the children are equal. They all learn in different ways. He is in English learning, and with the help you get, everything will gonna be fine." He was a student of ALD at Harrison Elementary School and then later attended Gage Middle School. I knew something was going on with Eric, and I started looking for help and answer. When Eric was in the 5th grade, I spoke with his teacher, and he understood my concern. He directed me to the special education teacher for guidance. Then asked me to write down my concern, and I wrote my ideas in paper. And I started a process of evaluation for an IEP. At the time, I didn't know it was special education. My husband and I went to the first meeting for an IEP, and the first question they asked was, "What do you want for your son?" We feel a little intimidated at the time, and we respond, "The best." But what is the best? We were not prepared for ask question. We thought we were going to find immediately answer and maybe something magical that will help us with our son's education and his learning disability. Now he's doing better at the school, but we have a long way to go. About a year ago, I joined a support group for parents with children in special education. Also, we are the vice president there, where they planned and discussed what will be the objectives, philosophy, and goals of the group. We are supporting each other and other parents to educate ourselves to be an active part of the IE team for, sorry, my English is not too good. Part of the IEP team for our children, learning about what is special education, what is an IEP, what is the difference between service and accommodation. With Andy Stekevich, we attend workshops to learn how to help our children learning at home. Tasks in CACs and others have provided myself and other parent support. I have also attended other conferences such as the Fiesta Educativa Riverside, Right Love, Special Education Love, Strategies for Strengthening Learning, all to learn about special education. 1 year ago, alone, I learned more than all previous year. Now, I understood what is an IEP. An IEP is a legal document which, backed by the law, of the idea and the 504 plan. Those services and accommodations are not the same. Now there is something I don't quite understood and would like to find out from RUSD. What are the services available in our school district? So I could request the service available for my child.
Ms. Huerta, I need to have you wrap it up a little bit.
If I know the process and the service, then I will be easy to help my child during the IEP meeting. We are limited to time to discuss our concern and ask to service. Another thing is something we don't know what's during the IEP meeting we are here. That's why I firmly believe the result of the assessment our children are given should contain a section where the expert gives the suggestion, service, and accommodation to be appropriate for our children, not just the result. This way, the task of IEP team participation will be easy and complete for the benefit of our children, and this way will also be fulfilling the purpose of the idea free, appropriate public education to meet the unique needs and prepare for the future education, employment, and independent needs. Families need to get academic and emotional support services. We are willing to work and use like we have done before. It's very useful to accept the space, the Family Resource Centers.
Ms. Huerta.
Thank you for everything here tonight. Riverside School District Board of Education, the CAC for the work they do connect to families and community. Thank you for listening to
Thank you, ma'am.
live. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Ms. Huerta. Thank you. Rosemary Marino, Special Education. Hello, ma'am. Ms. Marino?
Thank you, Board. Thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am.
As a parent of two beautiful daughters of autism that attend Washington School, I like to say my concerns as far as I come to the Riverside Unified School District, I ask for help. I always have received the answers. Must be a home environment, or no, or due process. I have requested an independent education evaluation for my daughters who are in 5th grade, reading at first grade level, and the answer from RSUSD was due process, which was very devastating for me. As I came to RSUSD back in the day, I am a parent that has learned to be very practical and nip things in the bud. I asked the specialists, program specialists, for them to be placed in different classes, which was no. I asked them to be placed in different schools. The answer was no, although I would do the transportation myself. So this has affected my daughter's individualization, actualization, and education in a very bad, dramatic way. It's gotten to a point that's gotten out of control, and I don't understand why, and I'm very confused. Now, the teacher has asked me for an IEP to have one of my daughters changed to a different school for next year. I guess my confusion and my concern is, why did it get to this point? When I requested it years ago, when school started, before they got used to this environment, I feel that as a parent, we know our children somewhat better, and we like to be listened to and take in consideration our concerns. Now, if this goes about with my daughters being separated and they have autism, one more than the other, what type of emotional support is going to be given to my daughter that's going to be moved? Are those answers going to be given to me at this IEP? That's what I like to say to the board. This is how we are left, without any concern at home, how we have to, how you say it, support our children. We do our best coming to RSUSD, the district, for the help before it happens, not after it happens, because then we left with the children that we need to support emotionally, amongst other children that we have as well. And it affects the family as a whole, not just one person or child, but everybody. And we just need that help and that support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marino. To all the parents that spoke, thank you for your words and information to this board. Again, we cannot respond because of the law, but let me just tell you what the bylaws of our school board say, is that after a school board meeting, the president representing the board and the superintendent representing the staff get together to go over the previous, sometimes evenings, a couple days later, which happens to be tomorrow. So this will be on our list, and we will talk about this. The first speakers, I think every member up here, I want to assure you that every member up here, including Dr. Hanson, feel that the needs of the weakest is indeed indicative of the heart of the commitment of the district. And we want to have a strong heart for special needs parents. We don't want to hear things about intimidation, stifle, out of control, or confusion. Those should not be words that are involved in special education. So we will look into this, and I assure you Dr. Hanson is very big-hearted on this issue. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll resume with a presentation on district employees. Thank you. All right, we're gonna have some semblance of order, and we'll see if we can get back to our seats, get back to our agenda. If the Poly cluster would like to leave, they've already done it probably anyhow, so. Or all of you have classes in the morning, so. Gary, if your Poly cluster would like to leave, I know you all have early morning classes. Those kids are going to show up, so thank you for coming tonight. Thank you. How's your student at Magnolia? She okay? Good. Yes, ma'am. All right. As we get back to it, we're going to have a CSEA presentation tonight. Vice President Carrie Aldis of the CSEA will speak to us on an update on chapter activities. Oh, I see you got someone to handle there, Carrie. It's all right. All right, Carrie, thank you. Anybody lose a child? Does this happen in city council meetings, do you think? I don't know. All right, Carrie, thank you. There you go. Well, come on. You're a La Sierra Eagle. You can do this. Come on.
Yay.
Yeah.
Don't say that. It's a different district. So. But that's okay. Good evening, President Hunt, the board, and Dr. Hansen. Dan Rudd couldn't be here tonight. He had a medical appointment that he had to go to. So on behalf of CSEA, we are going to present a little video that we made, because we're under the impression that some of the board members has a little bit of a question as to what we do in the district for classified, and we have such a wide range of jobs, so we prepared a short video just to give you a little bit of an insight as what we're doing. So
thank you, Carrie.
Okay.
Every day I get the opportunity to teach 3 40-minute classes to kindergarten through 6th grade students. They're very vocal about what they need, so that makes my job easier. And some of the students want to take it even a step further than my lesson, and that's really motivating. I feel that I have many, many projects that I could get to with more time. I'm so excited to be piloting some programs in the kindergarten and 1st grade classrooms, and the faster I can get that technology out, the faster they can use it. It makes me feel bad when I have to walk away from a job undone.
Would make life easier because you wouldn't have to get it in and be out by 1 o'clock. And also, I think it would be nice because the library closes here at 1, and so kids can't come in, and it's just an empty space then, no use. And if I was here, then of course the kids could come in all the way to the end of the day, although the library is used for hearts after I'm gone, but it would be great if they could change their library book. I always tell the students, if you finish your library book anytime during the week, bring it to me and you can get a new book.
So I felt left out of the process. Here I feel like I have an input to their situation, to the point where I can delve in a little deeper, find out if there are things at home that are causing their problems here, if they're having difficulties focusing, at least addressing the student individually, and then meeting with parents to help work together and find a solution. So I really feel fulfilled here as far as someone who wants to make a difference in the kids' lives.
You need coverage before school because people are here before school begins. You need coverage after school because there's a lot of people still hanging around after school. They're playing handball or running around the campus. You have school activities that are going on after school. Classrooms are still being used after school. Teachers are here long after school ends. So there's a need for that to happen. And when you have kids on campus and they're running around, or even if they're performing an important function for their academic career, you still need people here because you may have people coming from elsewhere coming on here. It's an easy prey for bad people to come on campus. We know that goes on. It's happening almost every day somewhere in America.
Well, basically, our job is very important because we're the ones that make everything sanitary for the kids. You know, if we don't disinfect things properly or clean things properly, the kids won't be in the classrooms. And it's stuff that we can't do when the kids are in the classrooms. It would mostly benefit the day person because there's only basically one person during the day alone. And if something were to happen, like if a kid throws up or stuff like that, the day person doesn't have time to go away from what they're doing to go and clean that up, or if they do, then what they have to do gets backed up, which in turn falls on the night team as well, because then we have to go in and pick up what the day person couldn't do. So it basically benefits day people and night people.
For so happen a campus supervisor is not available, I could help actually on the school grounds, helping in that capacity, or if the school secretary or the principals need me for something, I'm available, and they don't have to pull someone off, obviously, another job that, you know, they might have various jobs to do.
I know a lot of the times, you know, since I'm a 5-hour, a lot of the kids, either I'm trying to help them, but, you know, my time is up or I have to leave, and I always just try to pick up at what I can for the next day with them. I just feel like there's not enough time.
I don't think I would only benefit from it, but also the school, as far as the teacher that I work for. I would be able to assist her with things that she's not able to get done during the day. I mean, she deals with a lot of things, with IEPs, with the students, grading, all that stuff. So I'd be able to help her a little bit more.
I'll just take an extra minute. I'm hoping it gives you a little bit of insight as to what we do. It's just a fraction of what the classified staff does for RUSD. So, any questions?
No, thank you, Carrie. That was very insightful.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's do more of it. All right, now we have actually for our Riverside PTA, Azine, I know how to say it, Mabashir, sorry. I always do it, Azine. Super STEM parent is here.
Well, you remember.
I do. I remember that. You're our treasurer for the PTA.
Yes, I am.
I apologize.
Good evening, President Hunt, Dr. Hansen, and members of the board. Just a really short report from the Riverside Council PTA. Sorry that Gina couldn't be here tonight. So the council award ceremony will be on May 11th from 9 to 11 at the Life Arts Building, and I believe the invitations will be sent to the board. We had to disband 2 units due to lack of involvement from them, the Oxford Academy and Springs Charter. And also, the Carol Root Scholarships applications are available on our website, the rcpta.org. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Good. Any questions for our PTA? No, thank you very much. All right, we're going to go to the consent calendar. These items are considered routine and will be enacted in one motion unless there's anyone who'd like to pull something from the calendar. Any member? Mrs. Alavi?
Yes, please. I have 2 quick little questions for G12 and G13.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead and ask your question, Mrs. Alavi.
Okay, thank you. G12 is the Head Start progress report, and my question was about, silly, but the immunizations. It shows that some children aren't being immunized, and I just thought that was a requirement to start preschool. And does anybody know what that is?
Kim?
No?
No,
well, you can find out and let me know. I mean, I just was curious about the immunizations of that.
We'll make note of that question and
I'm sorry?
we'll make note of that question and get back to you.
Get back to me on that. That'll be fine. And on G13, that has to do with all the courses that are being approved. And I went through them all, and I'm very impressed, by the way. Some of them are terrific, like that International Business course. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it's really super. But there was one course. It's the STEM course. I'm not exactly sure. It has on the bottom no designated credential authorization, and it says it's not A through G, and it doesn't say pending. And I just want to make sure that I don't read that incorrectly, that it is pending for A through G completion. It's,
Let me see if I can find which one. Is that the RSA research, the
It's-
STEM
yes.
Academy's research class?
Yes.
That is a class that
Yes.
they're for their STEMworks program, I believe?
Yeah, STEMworks.
So, who had that one?
Is this because it's zero credit? I don't quite understand. If it's zero credit, why are we even bothering with the approval?
Good evening, Mrs. Alvey. There's two courses there. There's the STEMworks, which is a research. It's for credit, 10 credits.
Oh, okay.
And then there's another one there that is the
Well, this is for the flexible non-credit course offering?
the flexible non-credit course. That one is for an independent study type time for the kids. It's not for credit. It's independent study. They're under the view of a faculty advisor, and they work on, there's 3 components to that program. But it's
Okay.
for not credit, and it's independent study.
Okay, so it's not really a course. It has zero credit. I mean,
No, it's not a course per se, but it's it's time in the master schedule that has to be
that has to be accounted
accounted
for. So that's why we're approving it. Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you so much for clarifying.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
I'd like to move.
I will move for approval of
Thank
the
you, Ms.
consent
Alvey. I have a
agenda.
motion for approval of the consent calendar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Please vote. I guess we're not, there we go. And that is approved. Now move on to our reports and discussions. Mr. Cloud, how are you? Welcome. Mark Cloud is the chairperson of our Measure B Citizens Oversight Committee, and will present the Board of Education with the 2014, is that right, annual report?
Yes, I just wanted to do a brief introduction. Mr. Hunt, Mr. Hanson, or Dr. Hanson, members of the board, the Citizens Oversight Committee is required to provide you with an annual report of the functions of the Measure B process. I should tell you that the current annual report contains every project from the very beginning. In fact, it's if anyone wanted to know about projects that were done, say, 10 years ago, it's in this document. So it's a cumulative aggregation of all work. I do want to mention that there's 250 pages. This report will be on the 2014 report, so it's not of work that's done just recently, but it's back 1 year. And I'd be remiss if I didn't make a comment about the committee. Due to your appointments of the members, we have a very solid group of professionals, parents, business persons who lend some very strong credibility to our process and validate that the funds are spent appropriately. So with that, I'd like you to direct you to pages 398 in your document. The report itself goes 250 pages to 645, and asking Mr. Cloud, as the chairperson of the committee, he'll start with his PowerPoint, which is on 646. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis.
Well, good evening, everyone. Dr. Hunt, Dr. Hanson, honorable board members, and of course, district staff. My name is Mark Cloud. I'm the chairperson for the Measure B Citizens Oversight Committee, and I really appreciate you guys letting us come tonight to give you our annual report. First, there's only one other person here from the committee, so I'd like her to stand up if I could. It is Vice Chairperson Crystal Pennington. There she is. Thank you very much. It's a really good group of volunteers, and it's a great committee to be on, so it's been a lot of fun. I'm going to highlight just a few bullets from the next few slides. I won't talk about everything, and so you'll see that as we go through. If you've got questions, I'd be happy to answer them from the committee's perspective. If you've got technical questions regarding the budget or finances and things like that, I'll probably kick it back to Dr. Lewis. Getting started now. I assume this is for me. Here we are. So, committee activities. I'm just going to populate all of these. The committee, as you know, some of this is redundant. You've seen it before. The committee has met throughout the entire project process, and we've met, in fact, more than 70 times since 2002. We've held meetings at various project locations. We've seen a lot of them in person, and so that's been a great opportunity to see them not only once they've been completed in some cases, but in other cases we've seen them while they've been under construction. We've been given at each meeting detailed project status updates and project financial reports. Moving on to building fund summary. $175 million of the first, second, and third issuances of Measure B funds has been appropriated. Moving on to total funds available to Measure B funds are $186.6 million. $183.9 or just over $1 million has been appropriated to specific projects. That leaves, or did leave at this point when this was put together, $2.7 or over $2.7 million not having been committed to specific projects. Well, since this was put together, that funding has gone to the Ramona High School remodeling of the theater, which is going to be very exciting. Moving on to the committee findings. The Measure B committee, we find that the fund expenditures have been committed to identified Measure B projects and have not been dispersed for any teacher or administrative salaries or other school operating expenses in accordance with the law. All projects completed have been completed at or under budget. Moving on to the final point here that I wanted to bring up. The committee has reviewed the general obligation bonds, the performance audit for Measure B, this most recent one, and the Riverside Unified School District 2013-14 annual financial audit, and we conclude that the audit findings are in accord with the restricted expenditure of Measure B funds. On a final note, this is where we get to praise your staff, if it would go through. Here we are. These are very well written bullet points, but I wanted to go off the script a little bit. This staff that you've got in place administering Measure B funds are really great. They're phenomenal. They've done a fantastic job administering not only these massive construction projects, which is a logistical nightmare, arguably, but they've also done a great job keeping great oversight of every penny that they've spent. That's another thing that they've accomplished, which is very difficult to do, and lesser staff members, not staff members, lesser districts wouldn't nearly have done quite the job that they've done. So the committee has been very pleased with the work that they've done, and in keeping us informed. They've been very transparent, and it's been a real treat to serve on this committee and to watch the district work at this level. So that's the report tonight. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Mr. Cloud? Well, first I want to thank you, Mark, for your service, and to you, young lady, and we appreciate it. It's a very important part of what a bond campaign's about and issuance. So thank you for your service to this district. It's invaluable.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And best to your mom.
Thank you all. No, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good night.
Thank you, Mark. All right, now we go to H2, which is about the VAPA program update. Assistant Superintendent Antonio Garcia.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Hunt, members of the board. I'm going to ask Brad Shear, Elementary Education Director, and Kim Coons, who's our VAPA Coordinator, a specialist. They're going to be reporting on the VAPA long-term plan being proposed to the board this evening.
So good evening, President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. We're very excited to bring tonight's 2016 Arts Action Plan to you. I'm joined here as that was I was going to say Ms. Coons-Leonard is with me, but Mr. Garcia just said that. So I'm very pleased. Mrs. Coons-Leonard has done yeoman's work in this process and has been with the Arts Committee that was put together, the Arts Review Committee, all through the way, all through the process, and she's lived this process for the last year. So I just really commend her for all her work. You have before you, or should have before you, a copy of the 2016 Arts Action Plan. And so even though we're not intending to articulate every single item that's in here, we're going to hit some of the highlights tonight, and we're going to bring to you, what you're looking at is actually a long-term plan, and then we're going to share with you some recommendations for possibly a first phase of that long-term plan. I do want to recognize we have a number of our folks from the Arts Committee here tonight, and if you actually go to the acknowledgments page, the very second page of the document, you can see some of the members of the that were participating in this Arts Review Committee. But if we could just actually have them stand for a minute just to be recognized, or just real quick, those who are on that Arts Committee. Thank you, all of you. Thank you very much. The folks have done a lot of work here in bringing these recommendations to you tonight, and so we just want to thank each of them for their work. We had assistance in this Arts Action Plan by a consultant, and that was Armelin De La O, the director of the RIMS California Arts Project. Armelin, I think you stood there a second ago, but thank you, Armelin. So we're really excited to bring this to you. The focus of this Arts Action Plan is to encourage us to continue to stay ahead of the curve. And the words there are very important. The Arts Committee feels very strongly that Riverside has done a very good job in working to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to visual and performing arts. That even throughout the recession, we maintained resources and support for the arts that many of our sister districts did not. A few examples of that: we continue to provide funding at the elementary level for our itinerant band teachers who provide band instruction at 5th and 6th grade. We've developed integrated visual arts lessons for elementary in recent years for our elementary teachers. We continued middle school electives in visual arts, vocal, instrumental music, and so forth. We have a wide spectrum of introductory and advanced level courses at our high school, and of course we're very pleased with our magnet school at Ramona High School. We had a previous arts plan. It was written back in 2008, and of course, unfortunately, we also know that in 2008 was right about the time when the recession hit. So many of those recommendations that were in that previous arts plan were not able to be implemented. That arts plan served as the starting point for the work in this revised arts plan, and so we moved forward with that. In the introduction to the arts plan, there's actually an interesting quote that was placed in the plan from State Superintendent Tom Torlakson. In 2015, there was a document called A Blueprint for Creative Schools, and he noted the following. He said that the arts are important for lifelong learning, the development of 21st century learning skills, and college and career readiness. They're a critical part of the foundational education everyone needs to fully engage in society. And he says, now is the time for the resurgence and expansion of arts instruction in California's public schools. The arts have been very important to this board. As we all know, that Board Goal 6 says we will look for ways to strengthen our VAPA programs to a point of excellence in the region. The statement that you see on the slide is from the first sentence from our arts plan vision, which says that Riverside Unified School District's visual and performing arts program is clearly poised to go to the next level to achieve its goal of becoming a point of excellence in the region. And the vision statement goes on to talk about the importance of providing arts instruction to all students and that it be an essential and foundational pillar for our students. We're not alone in reviewing our arts plan. Interestingly enough, a number of other districts around us have also begun that work, and so I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Coons-Leonard to talk a little bit more about that.
So, knowing that we want to elevate our VAPA program to a point of excellence in this region, the committee looked at what was going on within this region and beyond throughout the state. What we learned is that a number of districts are investing and or reinvesting in their arts programs. Specific to our region, and we call our region Southern California, we're going beyond Riverside County and looking at the greater Southern California region. Several districts, you see them listed there, caught our eye. I'm going to focus on 3 of them with a little bit of detail because they reflect trends we're seeing across all these districts and throughout the state as districts begin to dust off old art plans and start to write new arts plans. Chula Vista Elementary Unified, the largest elementary school district in the state, about 28,000 students, allocated $15 million over 3 years in its LCAP fund to provide for visual and performing arts personnel. And more than 70 teachers were hired since June. Irvine Unified School District has for a long time and through the recession been providing music pathways for all their 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students in strings, band, and vocal music. General music, they've been offering K-3 for all students, and they've embedded into that general music dance standards so that they build the movement in with the music for the younger students. Most recently, they've expanded to include itinerant visual arts teachers serving at the elementary level. Then a third district to look at, LA Unified School District. LA Unified's board recently voted unanimously to declare that the arts are core. They're a core subject, and to restore funding over time to the level it was at in 07-08. And over time, that will be a 40% increase in arts funding. So, in addition to reviewing what was going on up and down the state, the committee also reviewed extensively research on arts education. And you have a bibliography of that research on page 14 of the arts plan. We've cited, and you've already heard Mr. Scheer reference, a blueprint for creative schools that came out in October of this year, and it provides a lot of guidance on what districts can think about as they're developing or looking at how to expand art programs. It was a report to State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torlakson, and it states something very important about research, the arts research, and so I'm going to read the quote directly. Research points directly to a critical tool that has the capacity to move the educational system firmly in the direction of high achievement for all students. That tool is a high-quality arts education and arts integration in every classroom. Our district VAPA Program Review Committee agrees with this. We found in reviewing the research, you've got that list in front of you, that in addition to the importance and value of learning art for art's sake, which we believe our board goal on the arts is about, that there's research to show that comprehensive arts program will also support other board goals. Our board goal on literacy by third grade and college and career readiness. Specifically to supporting our goal of literacy by third grade, and I'd like to say ongoing literacy according to the research, how the arts interacts with literacy. The first two bulleted examples address integration of theater on its own or along with dance and or visual arts into English language arts instruction. What this research consistently demonstrates is that art-based lessons provide visual, auditory, and kinesthetic input that help students connect their new learning to their prior knowledge and helps them store all that information they're learning into their long-term memory. Specific to music instruction, a neuroscience study shows that instruction, introductory musicianship, then transitioning to playing an instrument, a minimum of 2 years, and in this study the students played for 2 hours a week, rewires, and this is a quote directly from the journal, children's brains and improves their ability to process information. One of the authors of the study stated, music education seems to fundamentally alter the nervous system to create a better learner. Supporting the board goal of college and career readiness. You have up here a reference to the arts and achievement in at-risk youth. This study is being referenced everywhere. In every document you read on why we need to look at a comprehensive arts program. It used 4 large national databases to analyze the relationship between arts involvement and academic and social achievement. 3 databases were sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education, and 1 database came from the Department of Labor. Their conclusion, low-income teenagers with a history of extensive arts experiences show achievement levels closer to, and in some cases exceeding, the general population studied. If you look at the data up there, what's being compared are low-income students with intensive arts experiences, in many cases going back to elementary, and the study shows that when it begins in elementary, it's going to have a more profound effect versus students who did not have intensive art experiences. So it's worth reiterating the Blueprint for Creative Schools statement. High-quality arts instruction is a critical tool for high academic achievement.
So the Arts Action Plan has 4 recommendations, and they're summed up here on this slide. So the first is that all students would experience equity and access to all 4 arts disciplines, which would be dance, music, theater, and visual arts. Equity and access being that all students get opportunity to be involved in this, no matter what school, no matter what neighborhood that you're from. Number 2 would be personnel to provide that quality arts instruction. Some of the arts instruction, including at the elementary level, requires specialization, people that are knowledgeable and skilled at teaching music, for example, or teaching other subjects. And so there's a need for additional staff. And so the arts plan includes personnel recommendations. Professional learning, so in addition to that, there are some things we can teach our multiple subject elementary teachers, and there's more professional learning that can be provided in that for the general education teacher as well. And so step 3 is provide that professional development for our elementary teachers and additional support for our secondary arts teachers as well. And then finally, administrative oversight to ensure implementation and sustainability of the program. So those are the 4 recommendations. In a nutshell, we've tried to capture in the next 2 slides what the impact would be for both elementary and then also secondary. So I want to reiterate again that this arts plan is a long-term vision. So we're going to share a later slide with you with some immediate actions that we can take, but this is the long-term vision. One would be that in elementary, there would be the provision of a K-6 music program for all students. So in grades K through 4, all students would get general music instruction 2 times a month. And that beginning in grades 5 and 6, right now where we have a optional opportunity to participate in band, instead it would be required music instruction 2 times a week, and the students would choose between band or vocal music, so either band or choir. With that, if we expand band to that level and expand vocal music to that level, we're going to need to look at some additional facilities needs. So, for example, right now, for our itinerant elementary band program, we did a recent survey of their facilities, where they house their itinerant programs. 1/3 of our band classrooms are identified for band, like it's their classroom, okay, which is ideal. 1/3 is shared usually with some other program on the campus that just doesn't happen to be using the classroom at that time. It's often Hearts, the after-school program. So it's filled with stuff around the room and not always an ideal place for band instruction. And then 1/3 of our elementary band instruction happens in the multipurpose room on the stage, and with all of the distractions and challenges that that's going to create. So expanding would require, and this arts plan has recommendations to provide additional, maybe a portable at a number of our school sites as we expand the program. That's costly, but that's what's actually in the plan, because if we expand it, we have to provide the facilities. So that's music. There's the provision of K-6 visual arts program for all. And so we've been really excited to be able to work in this year with the Riverside Art Museum's Art2Go program. So this year we've already began to implement the Art2Go program in grades 5 and 6. And at this point in time, we have that program happening in 27, I believe, of our schools right now, where the Art Museum sends their instructors to our campuses, and they provide those 1-hour visual arts lessons to our students. It was actually interesting, and I was just before the break, I just was visiting a school, and I happened to walk in on a classroom where that art lesson was happening, and the students were really engaged, really excited about what they were learning. And I was most excited about, I saw the Art Museum teacher teaching. She was doing a great job. I actually pulled aside the classroom teacher and I said, tell me about the program, how's it going? She said, I'm super excited about it. And not only was she happy with the instruction, but also the Riverside Art Museum provides the classroom teacher with extension opportunities, lessons, activities they can do that are connected to the art lesson that they did. So I saw examples on the wall of writing that the students were doing connected to the art that they'd done, or a presentation that somebody had done. There were connections made to all the subject areas, social studies, science, math. It depended on the art that was being done. So it was really very impressive. So our recommendation is to expand it ultimately long-term to K-6, to all of our students. And then finally, providing staff development and coaching for our elementary teachers. We've hit the visual art and the music art, but what about theater? What about dance? And so our proposal is to provide professional development for our teachers to help them find ways to incorporate both theater into their instruction, maybe in history or science or language arts, and then dance, ideal place would be physical education, into their ongoing instruction. So the plan includes professional staff development and so forth. Kim's going to talk about the secondary.
So secondary. We're recommending that additional FTE up to 1.0. I'm sorry. I'm used to my teacher voice, but okay. The microphone's better. So an additional 1.0 FTE at each middle school to increase access into arts electives. There's a real dilemma at the middle school level. Students have 6 periods. They have to choose, if they're choosing AVID, that's their elective. They don't have access to an arts elective. If they choose foreign language, that's their elective. So it becomes will it be this or that? We would like to increase FTE option for our middle school principals so that they could add more sections to, say, their visual arts program, which in many cases they just have 1 or 2 sections now, or bring in theater, which we would like to see at more of our middle schools, or just add additional electives options for our kids so that they all have a choice of, I'm going to take this and that. Additional funding for core program. At our high schools, we've heard consistently from our visual arts teachers and our theater teachers and our choir teachers that the cost of their consumable programs often exceeds what their base budget is. And in turn, they're turning to their principal and saying, I really need more money at this point. Now, this is not for supplemental materials. This is for their base program delivery. And so we are suggesting funding at that level to augment that, and also to make it more consistent across the district how those courses are funded. And then finally, our visual and performing arts teachers have appreciated greatly the Common Core professional development opportunities they've had, because for the first time in a long time, they've been able to get together across the district with subject-alike teachers, have common professional development, and do collaboration together. If you think about it, they're often, when they get together at their high school, you're that art design teacher. You're that ceramics teacher sitting in the electives department meeting, and you don't really have someone else teaching your subject to collaborate with. We are recommending providing ongoing professional development for our secondary teachers to help them refine, extend, and further enrich the art they're doing. And again, getting back at that arts for art's sake and doing it even better and getting it to a point of excellence in this region.
So again, that in a nutshell is the long-term vision. And so then our recommendation tonight is that we consider phasing in some of these actions. So what we have for you here is our recommendation for phase 1, and then, and I'll explain, there'll be subsequent phases. So as funding becomes available, as we are able to find additional ways to implement more of this vision, then we would go to the subsequent phases. But we wouldn't have to go back to the drawing board and say, where are we trying to go? We'd actually have this mapped out in a plan. So phase 1 is here on this slide. Our first recommendation is to do several things. One is just to add that 1.2, I know it's kind of strange, 1.2 FTE for an itinerant music instruction for grades 5, 6. Right now, at grades 5, 6, we have, each of our elementary band teachers has about 390 students that they work with. It has grown substantially over the last 7 or 8 years, but we really haven't expanded the number of instructors. So the band programs become more popular and more students are participating, but we haven't been able to give them any additional help. So one is just providing a little bit of relief immediately will help bring those numbers down and increase the possibility that they can get to, because they are itinerant, so they're racing from site to site, and so we want to make sure we feel that would give us from 5.8 to 7. So we'd have 7 full-time equivalent music teachers for elementary. Begin implementation of the general music program for grades 2 through 4. So we start that music program, so feed into that 5-6. Provide some general music resources for the site as they implement that 2-4 program. Provide Art2Go visual arts lessons for students in grades 3 through 6, so expanding from the 5-6 program we have now to 3-6. And then, as Kim mentioned earlier, provide funds to augment the base funding for high school and that consistent funding for showcasing district-wide events. So you go to the next slide, you'll see these. I won't read all those bullets here, but just that these would be the subsequent phases over time as funding becomes available, as we are able to allocate additional funds and support for the program, we could move in these particular steps. And so that would give us a guide for next steps going forward, with phase 4 would be ultimately implementing the entire long-term vision that we see here in the arts plan. And just as a way of summarizing the costs, so phase 1 alone would have an estimated ongoing cost of $910,000. To go for full implementation of phases 1 through 4, the final estimated ongoing budget would be $4.3 million. If, for your reference, there are cost information in the arts plan on page 12 and 13. So you can begin to see there on page 12 the total cost of each phase, and then the information for phases 1, 2, 3, and 4, both the implementation cost and the one-time and then ongoing costs. So some things we just are one-time. If it's a portable, it's one-time, right? We get it in place and it's there. If it's materials, it might be one-time. But the staff, and because it involves staff, that's going to be ongoing as you maintain these teaching positions. So at this point, we are open for questions. I'm sure you have many questions for us.
Yes, Mrs. Luck-Dawson, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shearer, Ms. Coons-Leonard. I think you guys have done a fabulous job, and to the team, too. I appreciate you putting all the effort into this. We've been pushing for something like this for some time, so it's exciting to actually see it come forward to us. I just had a couple comments and questions, I guess, that I'm struggling with a little bit, and so I just want you to maybe, I don't know if you can answer it, but I'll just point out some of my initial impressions on some of it. I think the initial statement of us having a comprehensive arts program is on page 671. There seems to be such a heavy emphasis on the music instruction. And I went through and I calculated the budget for each of the years, each of the phases. And, you know, year 1, it's 73% goes to music, 16% goes visual. Year, let's see, I think the phase 3, 22% of the budget is to music, and in phase 4, fully 71% of the budget, 3.4 million of that 4.8 million is to music. So, and it almost seems, and I realize there are a lot of fixed costs with instruments and portables, but it almost seems like, and I see Mr. Maloney sitting over there, so I don't want to diss the Art2Go program because I love it and I push to have it come, but it almost seems like our visual arts instruction is an afterthought to the whole program, so it doesn't really seem comprehensive to me in that sense. And I'm sure you can attest to there are ongoing costs with that are not fixed costs every year, which is consumable. And so I'm just curious. I guess if I were doing a more comprehensive, I would probably have it be a little more balanced. So do you have anything to say to that, or is it?
Well, this has gone through many versions. The committee is nodding its head. And as we saw the personnel costs rising and rising, and if you were at the subcommittee meeting in September, we did talk about 9 itinerant visual arts teachers providing lessons at the elementary level. But we were looking for ways to cut the ongoing cost, and we have in Riverside Art Museum's program such an exemplary way to deliver that to our students without the FTE cost. And so we saw an option there as a way to provide visual arts, and the committee's nodding its head. to all students, but at great savings, and all the supplies provided by RAM, too.
Yeah, I know, it's a great program. Also the report is just very heavy on music. It's heavy on music instruction, that it's in every grade level, and talks about the need for it and the value of, the research, and I would like to see a little bit more about some of the other
And part
modes.
of why there was a lot with the music instruction is that we know that a multiple subject credential teacher can receive training in theater, can receive training in dance movement at the elementary level and visual arts, and fairly well and often beautifully implement those in the classroom. But that music is like learning another language. And to teach music to students really does require a teacher that is credentialed in it and has, that background.
And I guess I would argue with some of that in the sense that I think visual art, it has to be rigorous as well. It is a discipline. It is not, and I mean, I think you see teachers who have specialties in that do very well. And I mean, for me, if we have a visual arts program going forward and we have it as part of our district and becomes a core part, it has to be as high quality as anything else. And I do think Art2Go does provide that with a lot of it, but I think we can't give short shrift to that, I guess is my point. And it has to be high quality instruction with high quality materials, credentialed teachers if possible in that. And so that's...
Our consultant is smiling because we had many discussions regarding this.
And I'm not saying that we have this in our district, honestly, but I have seen it in other districts too. It's just like, oh, anybody can teach art, and that's not true. That's not true. Art is a rigorous discipline as well, and people go to school for a very long time to learn it. So, anyway, all right, thanks.
Yes, Mr. Lee, please.
Yes, thank you, President Hunt. Thank you for that presentation. I think you're probably preaching to the choir when you talk to this board about supporting visual arts. So I think it's an exciting time in our district that we actually have a budget to actually consider some of these options to provide for our students. So I have a few questions. One does regard finances, and so maybe Ms. Kakish, you can answer this question. What have we allocated in our LCAP in regards to allocating funds for what they're proposing?
So I can speak to what we're going to recommend that we believe would fit the projections for where we want to stand with our multi-year projections. Is phase 1 is what we're looking at recommending to the board. And we're going to bring that to you as early as next week as a preliminary information.
And so is that something that we had previously allocated as a board, or is that something because of the budget
Most
changes?
of that is new to the budget.
Okay.
I would say in the range of $700,000 is new. Some of it is new in one way, and some of it is new and is ongoing. So the rest of it is in one time, I'm sorry, not one way.
Okay, thank you. And then my other main question is, because a lot of it is geared towards music, I know we have another organization in town, Riverside Arts Academy, that has been trying to provide that same mission about providing equity and access to, in particular, music. And that program is growing and is having some good success. And so I wonder if there's been any talk, especially since this is a plan that's being phased in over a number of years, until we can cover that gap that exists now. Have we looked at trying to partner with them, especially with their announcement that they're partnering with the Harmony Project? And I think they'll get increased attention, hopefully increased funding to provide more opportunities for more students. And that program is serving mostly RUSD students. There's some Alvord students as well, but that seems like a great opportunity for an after-school program at little or no cost for our kids that can't afford it to have access to music or visual arts education. And if we can save money by using resources that are already in the community and allocate those dollars that may be guided in this plan for something else that we could phase in earlier, I think that would be a good use of funds.
So I guess, Mr. Lee, that the Arts Committee wanted to ensure, so when we start thinking about after-school programs, they wanted to ensure that there was equity and access. And so that's the one issue why we didn't bring an after-school proposal to you, but something that would happen for all children. I mean, we can certainly continue the dialogue about what we can or should do going forward, but that was why we brought these recommendations to you tonight.
All right. Yeah, I think it would be wise. I mean, even if we do all the considerations in phase one, which I think I'm for, I think it would be wise to at least provide additional support to those students in their experience in music, because even 1 hour or a couple times a week I think is wonderful, but to be able to give even more opportunity for kids that really thrive in that would be beneficial. So I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mrs. Alavi.
Thank you. I also thank everybody for participating in this, and any talk about art is good talk for me. And the strength of this plan is clearly in the elementary grades. I mean, it sounds like you guys spent a lot of time talking about how to support what goes on in secondary, and it all fell to elementary. So I guess I'm not seeing as much for secondary as I was kind of hoping to see. Because as you all recall how this all got started, when Encore came as a charter application, and we were all going, what? They're going to have an art school? Well, we want the art school. We want to be known for art. We want to be known as the district that does this. So, but here what you're doing is you're strengthening our younger kids, but other than giving secondary a little more money for our ongoing program, you don't seem to be giving them much love. And so I'm a little worried about the lack of secondary enhancement. I mean, when I go to secondary arts programs, I know they are all lacking money. I mean, I think they all say I'm lacking money for instruments, I'm lacking money for, you know, all sorts of different things. And so I hear that. And I know that when we give them money, that goes to good things, it goes to their core. But how are we elevating that program in secondary to make it really stellar, to fight against a charter school that can spend a whole bunch of time and money on just those secondary art students? So I guess I'm a little sad that you did that. However, I can't fault you for anything that you do in elementary, except that I would ask you why you chose the things you did in phase one. Was it all a cost effort? Because some of the things that you talk about that are so exciting, I noticed are in phase 4. And I just wondered, how did you determine the phased in implications?
So we wanted to, you know, just looking at that list, just starting with the very first one, let's just make sure we have what we need to do the itinerant band program, right? So that we started there. And then just the idea that we wanted to begin to provide some of that music instruction. So we wanted to not have a, you know, rather than doing the early primary, you know, it made sense to go 2-4. You know, we're trying to find ways to be reasonable in what we're requesting. And so, but because the committee had recommended a music program at the elementary grades, we wanted to begin to fund that. The Art2Go program, again, like we said, we've already started at 5-6. We wanted to expand that as well, but not have a gap. So
we already have the seeds.
We had some seeds.
We would keep going.
Yeah, the high school we definitely want to augment those budgets. We know that that's a need. I'm trying to think what was our last item in there, but those are some of our thoughts as we're trying to be reasonable and thoughtful in what we can, you know, between $4.3 million and what we could do maybe more immediately.
I understand. Yeah. My last comment, and then I'll let everybody else talk. I don't think you've solved the middle school dilemma here. The middle school dilemma, at least the way you outlined it, is not going to be better just by adding an art teacher. We need to create a different kind of day so that kids can, oh, thank you, so that kids can have some more experiences in middle school and not be quite so you know, bookended into their program. And if we can do that, then let's get the art teachers, let's do it. But just to add them into what's there now, I know if it were my children, I'd be saying take Spanish, because I would have been gearing them up for college, and I wanted them to proceed. Even though they loved art and they were good at it, I probably would have said go the Spanish route. So you don't have the choices there, you know, in middle school. So I say change the system, the middle school system where you give them flexible hours, then let's add the art in. That's my...
Thank you, Mrs. Alavi. Dr. Farouk.
Thank you guys so much for your presentation. So I want to echo the sentiments from my colleagues about the importance of this, and thank you so much again for preparing. One thing that would be helpful for me is when we're recommending the phase one, if we could have kind of a breakdown of where that would put us with respect to those other regional schools that you mentioned, just so we have a sense of what is the gap still that persists. And because as a district of choice, you know, competitiveness is really important. And obviously our goal is to be more aspirational and be leading the way, but it's good for us to have a more specific understanding. And then my other comment actually is to Trustee Alavi, and kind of building off of what Trustee Lee said about, I don't know if you've gotten any insights regarding the Harmony project from the initial meeting. Just love to get some thought on that.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Mrs. Lock-Dawson.
Thanks. I had the same thing that Ms. Alavi was going to bring up as I was looking over this stuff is, I think in the report, or maybe this is something we need to do additionally with staff, is look at what policy changes we need to make as a board as well. And with respect to, you know, we revisit our high school graduation requirements all the time. And, you know, why don't we revisit our middle school requirements or make it optional in some different way? You know, how creative can we get there with this? Because I know there's different ways to look at. Ms. Lynn is over there nodding her head. I mean, we don't need to be so hidebound with our structure, right? So it's the same thing. I think you lose a lot of those music kids, right? I mean, it broke my heart. My kids left 6th grade, and they were in honor band, and then they all stopped, you know, so because they did just what you said. They took the other stuff in middle school. So I do think we need to look at some policy changes to address that hemorrhaging of kids as they get out of those. And then the other thing is just back to Mr. Lee's point and Dr. Farouk's point regarding identifying additional efficiencies with what resources we have out there, like the arts, Eastside Arts and Harmony, and even some of the dance studios we might have in town here, where we could maybe draw on some of those things, or, you know, make things more centrally located for different things. I think it's Chula Vista has one of their elementary schools is all music, right? Is that, or it's a? I think it's them that has it, and they've got, it's almost all, it's like a magnet. It's a music magnet. So are there creative ways we could do that too, where we could reduce some of our costs? And, you know, there's all kinds of different ways to look at it. So, and I'm giving you a Sisyphean task, so I apologize, but there are lots of things to look at. So anyway, good job still. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Those are not criticisms, they're just observations. Thanks.
My turn. Too much on the elementary, not enough on the high school. Too much on music. Should be more arts. I'm concerned, Kim, you said something about how does credentialing play into this? I know that I'll never forget the LCAP meetings we had at Arlington, where the kids were complaining about they were in theater and they were watching reruns of Friends, and we find out from them, Principal Antonio Garcia, that we didn't have a theater teacher. We weren't able to get one for a couple of years, and we had an English teacher who was frustrated, and both times those two young ladies quit. So how much is credentialing a challenge in bringing the arts?
Well, specifically, you've discussed theater.
Yes.
So for theater and dance, you can't get a credential in the state of California. However, that may change shortly. State Senator Ben Allen has introduced legislation to reinstate credentials in those two subjects. So right now, our theater teachers in many cases have an English credential, English language arts. Certainly, a credentialed teacher in that single subject area has a level of expertise that they're going to bring to what they do. The challenge is, and it talks, Torlakson talks about this, there's just been over the past 30 years, really since Prop 13 in 1978, when the arts program started to be cut back. And he said we're now into our second generation of teachers and administrators who don't really know what arts programs look like. And as a result, there hasn't really been a market for a lot of teachers credentialed in those arts subjects. And what Chula Vista Unified found was that when they said, hey, we're ready to hire all of you, they discovered they're not all out there. And you want to get highly qualified people. So our consultant recommended we work with our local universities and in partnership to establish a plan for ensuring credentialed teachers in the arts come our way.
Very good. Thank you for that. I would be very interested, Ms. Government Affairs, if you were to get some information on Senator Allen's bill. I'd like to know where CSBA stands on it, where CTA stands on it, and then have this board look at that bill. That's a very important item, and I think key to where we're trying to go. I do think that arts, when Mrs. Alavi's pointed out about high school, probably in the elementary is more of, as you talked about, Ms. Coombs, about the cognitive expansion and open up new parts of the gray matter, whatever. You put it better than that. But in the high school, I think that they're also looking at, beginning to think about careers. And it may not be they're going to be an actor, but they may find out, I can talk. I could be a salesperson, or I could be a lawyer, or whatever, or a superintendent. And so they need, I would like to see a little more emphasis in the high school, but I'm very, very pleased and with your work y'all have done. Thank you, Mr. Chair, as well. And that will close that part.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. That was great.
All right, now we're going to move to, okay, we're going to take a quick break. Okay. We'll let all the artsy people leave. Do it in an artsy kind of way, would you? There we go. Thank you. Thank you. There we go. Wave. There you go. All right. Thank you, Beth. Coming. Kim's taking your flower with her, huh? All right. We're going to move to action item I-1, which is resolution of the Board of Education, Riverside Unified School District, denying the charter position for the establishment of options for youth, Riverside campus, and adopting findings of fact. So I'll call on Assistant Superintendent Antonio Garcia to lead us.
Yes, good evening again, Mr. Hunt.
And let me just, pardon me, Mr. Assistant Superintendent. If anyone wants to talk on this issue, anyone wants to comment on this issue, I need a card, and I don't have one. So I just want you to know I'm not leaving you out. So go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
No problem. Good evening again. I'd like to invite Dr. Kaisha Holmes to provide a context for the process of the Options for Youth, and she will be introducing one of the partners from Best Best and Krieger, who will provide some information regarding the findings of fact.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Hunt, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. I am going to provide a very brief context of the process, and then I will invite Mrs. Harris up to actually present the summary of findings. So we essentially took a very multidisciplinary approach whereby all of the superintendent's cabinet members and their respective directors and coordinators made up the actual charter review team. And so that was how it was divvied up, if you will. And what they did is they reviewed the petition based on 9 review areas within a rubric criteria. They indicated whether the particular area met or did not meet the requirement, and they were required to submit any evidence or highlight the lack thereof within the actual petition. That information was compiled and was forwarded to our legal counsel along with the original petition, and the summary of findings and all those things was developed thereafter. And so Mrs. Dina Harris is going to come forward now and to present those findings, and we'll work together to address any questions you guys have.
Thank you, Doctor. Ms. Harris, you're our counsel from Best Best and Krieger, I understand.
Yes, I am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. Each of you have received, been part of your packet, a report entitled Review of Charter Petition for the Establishment of Options for Youth Public Charter School, Riverside, and Proposed Findings of Fact, and then also a proposed resolution as well. I'm just going to summarize the report and proposed findings of fact. I'm not going to, in the interest of time, I don't think you want me to read them all, but I will try to highlight and summarize the primary findings. Just in terms of procedure and background, I think it is important to understand the legal standards and criteria that are reviewed as part of this process. As you know, the law requires that action be taken within 60 days to either grant or deny a charter petition from the date of submittal. There was a public hearing on this back in March 7th, and then today we are within the 60 days. There was a short extension, which was agreed upon by the parties, which is permissible. The Education Code sets forth the legal standards and criteria for reviewing and taking action on a charter petition. The board shall grant, this is the intent of the legislature is that charter schools be encouraged and part of the public education system. And so the board shall grant a charter petition if it is satisfied that granting the charter is consistent with sound educational practice. And conversely, the board may deny a charter petition if it makes written findings of fact specific to the petition to support one or more of the following findings. Again, notice it's specific to the petition. So that is what we're looking at when we're considering whether or not to recommend granting or denying. And those potential findings are, one, the charter school presents an unsound educational program for the students to be enrolled in the charter school. And these are ors. So or, two, the petitioners are demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program as presented in the charter. There's a signature requirement. It has to contain certain affirmations. And this is kind of maybe one of the biggest areas of focus, and that is that the petition does not contain reasonably comprehensive descriptions of 16 listed elements, and that includes the educational program, measurable pupil outcomes, governance structure, employee qualifications, health and safety procedures, et cetera. There's just a long list that has to be addressed in a reasonably comprehensive manner. The reason for this is that the charter is their governing document. Any charter school's governing document, that's what they're held to. That's how they're held accountable. And so if it's not descriptive enough, if it doesn't have enough detail, it really doesn't, number one, inform you as to what the program is going to be, but also it doesn't bind them as to what their program is going to be. So it's important that there be a reasonably comprehensive description within the document itself. Also, as part of the review process, petitioners are required to provide the district with information regarding the proposed operation and potential effects of the school, including the facilities to be utilized by the school, the manner in which administrative services will be provided, and potential civil liability effects. If a charter is granted by the district, you become the supervising agency, and you're familiar with that process. If the district denies the charter, the petitioners have the right to appeal that to the County Board of Education, and if they grant it, they become the oversight. If it's denied there, it can go to the state. So that's the process. Also, if there's a denial, the petitioners can at any time resubmit the petition, whether it's to the district or some other district, and the process starts again. So the proposed findings of fact are listed, and again, these are not exhaustive. As Dr. Holmes indicated, the team from various areas of the district of expertise came up with a list of their concerns in the areas, and I would say this highlights maybe the primary or some of those significant concerns. It is not exhaustive. I don't want it to be taken as though everything else was perfect, and that's not required. So the first has to do with the fact that the petition does not contain reasonably comprehensive descriptions of all 16 required elements. And the first area is the educational program. And within the educational program, the first is that the petition does not identify the curriculum that will be used to meet the school legal obligations to serve English learners. There's no reference to the core materials to be utilized, and it's unclear how all of this will be implemented in an independent study or blended independent study program. There's also no reference to the credentials that will be used for teachers of English learners. So that's one area that's of concern within the educational program. Another one is in the area of students with disabilities. The charter proposes to be a school of the district for special education purposes, and proposes an MOU with the district whereby the charter school would provide all of the services and then being reimbursed by the district from the 602 funds. However, the petition provides very little detail on how it plans to serve the special education students. So it really doesn't provide a comprehensive plan on how it will provide students with a free, appropriate public education. And one area that was of particular concern is that the charter petition does acknowledge that most students are likely to be classified as non-severe and require less than 50% of the school day receiving special education services. And so even though it says that it will provide, the charter school will provide a full continuum of services, It doesn't describe how it is prepared to serve all disabled students, regardless of the severity of their needs, as required by state and federal law. So that's the second area under the educational program that was of concern to staff. Moving to health and safety. The petition does not include a reasonably comprehensive description of the procedures the charter school follow to ensure the health and safety of its students. The law does require that it include the procedures. And it does note that it will conduct criminal background checks, TB testing, and immunizations, but it doesn't provide any detail or procedures in that regard. And there were some particular areas that were of concern, and that had to do with a lack of, it didn't address how it was going to provide mandatory annual training to employees who are mandated reporters regarding detecting and reporting child abuse or suspected child abuse. It didn't talk about requiring fingerprinting of contractors who will come in contact with students. It didn't address screening for vision and hearing. And that's one area that the state board has specifically listed as what it requires in order to be a reasonably comprehensive description. So those are just a few of the areas in health and safety. One of the areas of concern has to do with the governance structure. This is, and the governance structure has to be also how it will ensure parent participation in governance. The petition states that the board of directors of the charter school, so that's the directors of Options for Youth Riverside, and that's a nonprofit public benefit corporation, will initially consist of 3 board members, and they may add 2. The nonprofit, the sole, what they call the sole statutory member of the nonprofit, is actually the parent company, which is Options for Youth California. And that sole member would be responsible for appointing any board members, replacing board members, terminating board members. In other words, would basically control the composition of the board.
Is that unusual in, if you allow me to interrupt, is that unusual in charter applications?
I've seen it, and it's usually an area of concern.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. It's not unusual that there is a corporation that's involved.
But that they would appoint and they have the ability to unappoint.
That's right. I mean, that's the concern, is that then what is the local, how is this reflecting the local interests of the community when there is no assurance that either local community members, local parents, and whatnot would be on the board of directors?
Especially if they're aiming at special education children.
Or whatever the local needs are of the district.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, right. So that is an area of concern. Another part of the governance structure that was of concern is it talks about meeting at least quarterly, basically anywhere in the state or outside the state, wherever they decide. And a lot of the language and I'll just, having seen a lot of these, what the problem here is that the bylaws are written as a nonprofit public benefit corporation that is not a charter school or that is not a public agency. So a lot of the rules regarding holding meetings and the time and place and all this are really for nonprofit law and doesn't address public agency law, like the Brown Act, for example. And that's actually one of the main findings that I have here at number 3, is that it states in 1 or 2 places will comply with the Brown Act, but then when you look at the bylaws, it violates the Brown Act significantly. So it says, for example, there's a waiver of notice meetings. There's action without a meeting. And you guys know this very well. Those are things that can't happen in a public entity. Place of meetings and meetings by telephone. It doesn't provide for the posting of agendas or public access to and participation in meetings, any of that. And so that was an area of concern in the governance section. Petition does not describe how the charter school and its officials would comply with the conflict of interest laws. Again, something that is required of public officials, including charter school officials. The FEPC has specifically said that the Political Reform Act applies to charter schools. And it doesn't acknowledge that they will be complying with that. And in fact, their conflict of interest language in their bylaws conflicts with the Political Reform Act.
Thank you.
Another area that was a lack of a description, reasonably comprehensive description, was in the admission requirements. It didn't indicate the level of the order of priorities that would be allowed into the charter school. It was just very vague in that area. One other area of concern had to do with the facility locations. The law requires that the charter school identify the location of facilities, and they did identify 3 satellite resources, listed the addresses, but then they said that the district, basically you, by approving it, would agree that they may open additional satellite resource centers if and when they determine it's needed, and they'll let you know. That's basically what the language said.
Ms. Harris, does it matter that one of those is not in our district, one of those proposed locations?
That would matter. It should be within the district.
Okay, thank you. I don't La Sierra Avenue, I'm pretty sure, is not in our district.
Okay. That would be, it would need to be within the district. The law does allow you to have one satellite, like for independent study-based programs, a satellite resource center in an adjacent county. There's like some room for that, but this would need to be within your boundaries.
Thank you, ma'am.
It also, the idea that they can select additional satellite resources without your approval also contradicts the law where it says that once you're approved, any additional sites need to come back to you as a material revision and to be approved by the board. So that is it's contradictory to what charter school law says.
Ms. Harris, would you take a question from Trustee Lockdawson, please?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I did not.
No, it's our procedure. Sir.
No. I was kind of waiting for you to slow down, and then I thought I'd just better ask before we get too far. Sure. But I did want to go back to your finding regarding the charter laws pertaining to meetings versus the nonprofit laws, and I just want you to clarify that for me a little bit more. So if they are operating as a charter under Riverside Unified School District, they must comply with all laws pertaining to a public agency?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that.
Okay.
There are certain things that are clear. Political Reform Act, yes. Brown Act, yes.
Okay.
There are some that say Government Code 1090 doesn't apply. Some say it does apply. So there's a controversy in that regard. That's why it's not addressed here. I wanted to leave that one out. But yes, in terms of, they say in their charter they're going to comply with the Brown Act, which is what they should do. But then that contradicts everything in their bylaws.
I see. Okay. That's what I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lockdawson. Continue, Ms. Harris. Thank you.
Okay. So also in the area of facilities is the issue of jurisdiction. This kind of goes to where the facilities are located. And the charter just kind of says in a fairly vague way that they will comply with any applicable jurisdictional limitations. The concern there is this is a very hotly debated and actually litigated area right now as to the location of facilities for non-classroom based charter schools and their resource centers. And so when it just says applicable jurisdiction limits, we need to be very clear about what that means to them. And it doesn't describe that. CSBA has actually filed an amicus brief in support of a school district's position that the location of resource centers should be limited. And a lot of charter schools believe that they have very little limitations when it comes to where they can locate their satellite facilities. So without getting into too much detail about what that means, for purposes of this, the petition doesn't provide enough clarity as to what they mean when they say we will comply with the applicable jurisdictional limitations, because that really leaves it wide open right now.
Thank you.
The other finding that is in the report is that the petition presents an unsound educational program for the students to be enrolled in the charter school, and rather than repeat everything that was listed under the previous sections, we believe all of them are basically can be incorporated to support that finding. So that is essentially the recommended, those are the recommended or proposed findings of fact that staff has developed with my assistance, and the recommendation is that the board adopt the resolution. By doing so, it would be adopting these findings of fact and denying the charter petition, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mrs. Alavi has a question for you, Ms. Harris.
No, I'm making a motion.
Oh.
I would like to move for the reasons outlined above, that the district adopt the findings of fact and deny the charter petition.
Can we have the motion be to adopt the resolution?
Adopt the resolution?
If that's what you're intending, yeah. The resolution actually
Got
incorporates
it.
everything.
Thank you. Adopt the resolution and deny the charter petition.
The motion is to adopt Resolution 2015-16-43, resolution of the Board of Education of the Riverside Unified School District denying the charter petition of the establishment of options for youth Riverside and adopting findings of fact. I have no other questions. I have a second. All right, Mrs. Lockdawson. So we have a motion and a second. Hearing no other discussion, please vote. All right, that passes unanimously, and the resolution carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris, for your work.
Thank you.
Doctor, thank you.
President Hunt?
Yes, sir.
It's 9 o'clock.
Oh, it is 9 o'clock.
Is it okay if we stay an extra 30 minutes?
Is that a motion? I'll second it. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, here we go. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Now we're going to talk about item I2, proposed attendance areas adjustments for Community Facilities District number 32 from Lake Matthews Elementary School to Harrison Elementary, and from Frank Augustus Miller to Shamawa Middle School. This is a first reading. Dr. Lewis.
Again, Mr. Hunt, Dr. Hanson, members of the board, this item is brought before you in consideration of a new community facilities district or residential development that is coming into play. The basics here is that we have capacity to house students from this development at both Harrison Elementary School and Shamawa Middle School, and we're basically at capacity at Lake Matthews and Frank Augustus Miller, which currently are the schools that are assigned to that area. So what I wanted to do is give you a bit of a background from a historical standpoint of this area that's in question, and then Haley Calhoun will supply you with the details of the proposal. So just to give you some orientation, our district boundaries are in the dark red. It is along La Sierra Avenue to the west. It does go through to the middle of Lake Matthews. Bear in mind that when school district boundaries were developed way back in the 1800s and 1900s, a lot of them were based on section lines. And then there's always an understanding that as development takes place, that school districts can do boundary adjustments between districts to make more sensible boundaries. So the area we're looking at is, you can see, it's just north of Lake Matthews. Lake Matthews Elementary School and the Victoria Groves development is actually the white area between our boundary and the red areas, which are new developments that are coming into play. The borderline is McAllister Avenue, which goes north and south from El Sobrante up towards Victoria Avenue. So I want to point out that red development that you see, and this is not all the developments that are potential to be built out in the future. These are the ones that are germane to our conversation tonight. But the large red area was an area called Victoria Groves East. Victoria Groves development is the one that Lake Matthews is in currently and serves all the new homes that were built basically in the late 90s into the 2000s. So in the red area, we knew there was development that was proposed in the early 2000s. They ran into a problem with an endangered species, a burrowing owl, and it, for all intents and purposes, stopped all that development in red. Haley and I have spoken with the planners in the county. They are actually new planners. They haven't been around that long. They weren't familiar with the endangered species that basically stopped that development, and could not explain to us why these developments are being proposed. The one at the very top is CFD number 32, which is actually started. There is some grading, some infrastructure is being put in right now, and there are model homes that are under construction. But those homes will not be built and occupied until next year, and it has about a 2 to 3 year build out. The two lower developments, Citrus Heights 2 and Lake Ranch, those are 2 to 3 to 4 years out. We haven't been approached to talk about community facilities district planning, nor have they gone to the county and have any firm applications in or approvals for entitlements to develop those properties. So with that, I'll ask Haley to come forward, and she'll take you through the rest of the presentation.
Good evening, President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. How are you?
Good.
It's getting late, so I'll try to get through this quickly.
Pull the mic down just a little bit. There you go, Ms. Calhoun. Thank you.
I need to wear higher heels. So as Dr. Lewis outlined, we have several new developments in the area, and I have to kind of apologize. We call Citrus Heights CFD 32. You haven't yet seen the formation of CFD 32. We are currently in that process, and that will come to you, I believe in May. We'll have the intent to form the CFD, but we do refer to it as CFD 32 at this point in time. So the developer is Lennar Homes. They are slated to have 343 homes, and as Dr. Lewis expressed, they've already started pulling permits for the model homes already in the area. They were expecting to have a grand opening April 2nd. I didn't actually get out there to see if they have it, but they do have a sales trailer there, and they are speaking about a build-out of 2 to 3 years. Projected sales and build-out, like I said, 2.5 years or so. And this expected student generation at our elementary school would be 120 students, middle school 35, and high school 69. And those generation rates come from doing our school facilities needs assessment, and they look at generation of homes, number of students that attend our schools based on similar residential areas. So that's how we get the student generation rates there. So the current attendance area for Lake Matthews and Harrison Elementary School, you can see the lower kind of purple color is where Lake Matthews attendance area is, and the upper lighter color is where Harrison is. And when, as Dr. Lewis expressed, when Lake Matthews was built, a lot of that land was vacant, and we knew it would not be able to be developed at that point in time because of the endangered species. And so Lake Matthews was built for the number of homes that were projected to be in that developable area. Where you see there is CFD 32. It's coming right there. It's on the border between Harrison and Lake Matthews. And then what you see there is what it will look like if we do shift that attendance area to Harrison. There's going to be a major avenue there called Fairway Drive that will connect between Van Buren and El Sobrante. So it will provide access from CFD 32, those homes, over to where we're proposing to get over to Harrison Street, or to Harrison Elementary. So as we start to look at changing the attendance area impact, or we look at the impact of the students and other factors, I referred to Board Policy 5116, which regards attendance area adjustments, and the considerations are to be given for facility, articulation of grade levels, safety factors, ethnic composition of the school population, and transportation. So what you see here first, this is the attendance area impact of the enrollment. So Lake Matthews site capacity is 875, and they are currently projected to be 875 next year. With the projected student generation of 120 students, that would definitely put them over capacity. And there's also future development, as Dr. Lewis expressed, of more students coming into that area that we will address as those developments come online. But right now we are really concerned about the CFD 32 because that one is, we know, moving right now. So Harrison has a site capacity of 625. The projected enrollment next year is 490, so they definitely have capacity for these students to come into their school site. So again, according to our policy, we need to look at the impact on ethnicity of our students with any development. And so you can see the current attendance area of Lake Matthews and Harrison, what the ethnic breakdown is, and then with proposed attendance area, and then what that change will mean. And so when we look at our composition of ethnicity at any school site, this will help us get closer to the district composition of ethnicity if we do make this change. And so then we're going to go through the same process when we analyze moving the same attendance area, CFD 32, to Frank Augustus Miller and Chemawa. And again, the lower portion is Frank Augustus Miller, and the upper portion is Chemawa Middle School. And then there's CFD 32, where it sits right now, the property. And then again, this is what it will look like as it joins into the Chemawa Middle School attendance area. So once again, looking at the attendance area impact, we look at capacity. Frank Augustus Miller, again, built for the number of homes we believe were coming into that area at that time. Site capacity of 1,130. The student generation of 35. Even though our projected enrollment, we're reaching capacity very closely there, even though we would have a little bit more room there next year. With the students, but as we approach build out, we would be over capacity there. And again, we have some other development in the area. There's infill projects now at Bridle Creek, and there's a couple new developments coming in, smaller, but still will have an impact on the attendance there. And then again, Chemawa, again, built for 1,075 students, current projected enrollment next year, 818, so we definitely have capacity at that school site for these students to come into. And again,
Is zero at Chemawa?
I'm sorry?
The projected student generation of 32 would be 0?
That would be for other developments outside of CFD 32. So we don't have any other areas around Shamawa that are building homes. So, yeah. Whereas you look at FAMS, there's 53 students there because of future development down the way. So again, looking at the composition of ethnicity at these two school sites, you can see Frank Augustus Miller and Shamawa, and again, the change would be a positive for Shamawa, approaching more of the district averages. So our recommendation is at this time, and again, this is a first reading, but you are welcome to take action, I believe, at this time, correct? They can take action if they choose to. It is recommended that CFD number 32 be assigned from Lake Matthews to Frank Augustus Miller, and Frank Augustus Miller to Harrison and Shamawa, where there is already capacity available. And I have one more slide, just if you'd like to go through some other things. Talking about some advantages of executing the recommended attendance area now. Obviously, we have capacity at Harrison and Shamawa. Lake Matthews is within a developing area called Riverside East, so we know there will be more homes coming in the area that we'll have to consider as we go forward and where we're going to house those students. Riverside East is just beginning the development, even though we know it's probably 2 to 4 years out. We know there will be continued development, continuing student enrollment and generation from that area. And again, looking at some of the number of homes that are coming into the area.
Mrs. Calhoun, would you take a question from Mrs. Allaby, please?
I will be happy to.
You didn't address high schools, so I just wanted
I'm sorry, I didn't. Every single one of these students in both these attendance areas, or all of these areas, will attend Arlington. So that's good news because we'll have some more students joining Arlington, about 169 total students at Generation for build out.
Okay, thank you.
They'll all go to Arlington.
When is this project supposed to be done?
About 2 years. And they've pulled permits already for the first model homes, and I think a couple more additional ones. So it will go pretty quickly, I believe, in the area. Very, it's a desirable area to be. I believe we will have sales there pretty quickly. So an additional, around FAMS, we have additional homes already going in, so that will have an impact already at FAMS. And also Bridal Creek, as I talked about, some infill areas there. So there's still development in those two school areas that we need to continually watch and address. And also FAMS is a program improvement school, so we already have students transferring to Frank Augustus Miller from other of our middle schools through the program improvement process. And so again, those students impact the general capacity of FAMS. And right now, this is a great time to consider executing the adjustment before any students arrive. There are no students, no families, nobody living in the area right now. And so as we move forward with our CFD, if we are making this attendance area adjustment, we will just name those schools in the CFD. So parents will be aware as they come into the area, those are the schools of residence.
Mr. Lee, thank you.
Although it's first reading, I'm willing to make a motion to approve staff's recommendation for the proposed attendance area adjustment.
I would ask that we actually give a little more time to look at this, and that's because it's my trustee area, and I want to understand it just a little closer, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
If we just go to the second reading, which will be next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay? Since I'm the one that has to put up with these folks in a few years. So, I'm a little concerned, Haley, that not so much with the middle school, even though they are they don't have to cross Van Buren, do they?
No. In fact, for the elementary school, they would be provided busing. Okay. It's about let me tell you exactly, 3.9 miles to Harrison, and to Shamawa about 6.5 miles. To FAMS, it would be 10 miles.
So we will provide busing?
For elementary school students. We don't provide secondary student busing, but for elementary, yes, we would be providing busing.
Within the 3.9?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And how close are they to Lake Matthews?
It's about a little over 2 miles. Uh-huh. Now this is as MapQuest was today, with the current streets. When they get that new Fair Parkway in, that will probably cut it down a little bit because that will provide a direct access to Van Buren and then up to Victoria.
Oh, okay. That's that one Avenue A?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Very good. So with the concurrence of my colleagues, we'll carry this to the second reading and give some time to talk to you. And
Certainly, if you have any questions, certainly you can let me know.
I'd like to have you, maybe Mr. Jeffrey's office, Supervisor Jeffrey's office, Dr. Lewis could explain to us about the KRAD if those new planners can't. I know that there's a lot of new folks up there, perhaps, Bury now, sorry.
They call it
They all taste like chicken, so I don't remember. So they are cute, I'll admit. We've got to not worry about that. Okay, so.
And can I just,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
asked about the urgency. There's not a real sense of urgency, but we would like to have this included in our CFD document, which is coming up in May. So we're finalizing it now. So yes, if we could really make a decision by next meeting, that would be perfect, because we really do want to include the new school sites. If we make that decision to move to the new school sites, we want to include that in the CFD when it's signed and developed and brought to you at that time in May. Okay?
Well, Chair takes note of that.
Okay.
All right. We'll move on to item I3, approval to purchase instructional materials for 3rd to 6th grade. This again is Mr. Garcia.
Yes, good evening again. I'll ask again for Brad Shear to come on up and lead this presentation for the board to have an understanding in terms of making a decision for a proposed adoption.
I want to, Ms. Alavi, do you want to say anything about?
Well, yes, I could say that there were 3 of us who have actually already reviewed the materials. No?
Yeah, it was Dr. Farouk and
Dr. Farouk
Ms. Alavi and I.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Yeah,
Very,
it was
we
great.
need to have more core knowledge schools based on some of the things I saw. It was fantastic. Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
So good evening again, Mr. Hunt, and President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, members of the board. I'm joined here at the podium briefly by Mrs. Adela Flores Bertrand. She's our instructional specialist for English language arts and has led the process for our this adoption process. I just want to acknowledge her. She's going to be nearby in case I get stuck. So I just wanted to thank her for all of her work and her participation in this process. So you'll see in the executive summary description that we're bringing a recommendation before the board that you adopt and approve for purchase for grades 3 through 6, McGraw-Hill's Wonders and Maravillas curriculum for 28 of our 30 schools, and then for our core knowledge schools, we're bringing a recommendation that you adopt and approve for purchase Amplifies core knowledge and the ELA California edition, which is their 6th grade curriculum for those 2 core knowledge schools, and I'll explain as we go. So quickly, of the background, our current 3 through 6th grade language arts program is over 14 years old, and as it's not aligned to the Common Core standards. So we have a very old program, and we adopted a newer program for K2 a few years ago, but not for 3-6. We wrote units of study to address the shifts in Common Core back in 2014-15, a year ago. We anchored those units in our current adoption, Houghton Mifflin reading, and there has, even though there was yeoman's work done on that work, there is still a strong consensus from our teachers, from our principals, and even from the unit writers themselves that we consider a new adoption. In 2015 of this school year, the State Board of Education completed their work in submitting a list of recommended materials, and so at that time we began our process of preparing for an adoption. We put together a small steering committee to prepare, and then we began to recruit teachers for the adoption committee. The committee held its meetings over the course of January, February, and March, and they reviewed 3 programs that met the State Board of Education criteria and contained a Spanish program equivalent. So our programs, all that we reviewed, had a Spanish version of it that is an equal to the English version, so for our DLI classrooms. The adoption committee had 1 teacher representative from each school site, teachers representing special education. We had principals from the various school sites, including some that are here tonight, district staff from various departments. When it came time to voting for recommendations, we did leave the voting in the hands of the teachers on the committee, so district staff and principals were there to guide and support and provide feedback, but we asked the teachers, we wanted the teachers to make the decision. The teachers represented a variety of areas. You can see those listed: personalized learning, dual language immersion, assessment, English learners, special education. The picture up there of the adoption toolkit was the resource that we used for our process. Came from the county offices of education, and it was recommended that as districts go through the adoption process, they use that toolkit. we found it highly valuable, and it gave us great questions to ask about the programs we were looking at. I'm going to skip this slide and come back to it, I promise. I want to show on this next slide our process, which was in pulling that committee together, we had them engage in, they were together for 6 days, 3 full days, and then 3 long evenings. And we had a wonderful adoption committee made up of some fantastic teachers on the committee. Our process was that we had them first look at the teacher editions for the materials that we were reviewing. We went through 3 iterations. We kind of did a surface look. We went deeper, that below the surface, looking at how using that adoption toolkit, and then a deeper dive looking at standards, lesson by lesson, how aligned is it to the standards. We looked at the 3 programs, Houghton Mifflin, Benchmark, and McGraw-Hill. So I'll talk about Amplify in just a minute. After 2 days of digging into the teachers' editions, our committee narrowed down to 2 programs for further review. That was Benchmark and McGraw-Hill. We then brought in the publishers. As I mentioned to the board members who joined us before spring break, we wanted to not be impressed by the shiny lights and the flashy publisher presentation. That's why we started first with that, looking at those teacher materials before we ever talked to a publisher. We had them then share their presentations with us. We then had another day where we looked at the ancillary materials, all the resources and tools that come with the program. And then finally, those committee members went back to their sites with the materials. Every site had the materials displayed. They were encouraged to gather staff and parent feedback. And then finally, a month later, we came back, deliberated, and made a decision to, and the 87% of the committee wanted to go with the McGraw-Hill program. At the same time, or concurrent with that process, we saw an opportunity to give our core knowledge schools a resource they've long wanted. And Amplify, the publisher Amplify, came out with a core knowledge language arts program for grades K-5. Because we're looking at grades 3-6, we pulled together a small subcommittee that included both the principals of those 2 schools as well as a teacher representative from each grade level. We had them go through the same process that we were asking the larger committee to go through. Now, we didn't look at the larger program, core knowledge program, for the whole district because it actually did not get SBE approved. It wasn't state board approved. But changes in Williams requirements have allowed districts to, if they go through a rigorous process of looking at curriculum, it's permitted for them to adopt curriculum as long as it's reviewed carefully. And so this committee did that work. And so they really dug into the materials, analyzed them. There were areas where the state board had concerns. We addressed those with the publishers. Many of those were very minor in nature, and they've actually indicated they're fixing most of those things. So the subcommittee, at the end of that time, voted and was overwhelmingly unanimous. They wanted this curriculum because it was so well aligned with what they're doing with core knowledge. Now, the little trick part was that the 6th grade, there was no 6th grade core knowledge curriculum. So we permitted them to look at Amplify's 6th grade curriculum, which interestingly enough is entirely digital. And that program actually was state board approved. And so that digital curriculum, they spent some time looking at it, and that subcommittee again said we'd rather stay within the Amplify curriculum area, and they recommended that curriculum for their schools only. So if you see here is our results, unanimous from the subcommittee for Amplify program, and the McGraw-Hill from the larger committee, 86% or 87%. So some quick highlights for McGraw-Hill Wonders and Maravillas programs. We have a full and equitable Spanish program in Maravillas. So our dual language immersion classes will have an equal program to the English one. The program is 100% print and 100% digital. So as we transition into our personalized learning schools and we go more one-to-one, everything that is in the print program is available digitally. And so we were very excited about that part of this recommended program. In addition to that, they just have additional robust digital resources. It's fully aligned, obviously, to the standards in our shifts in Common Core, abundance of resources for small group instruction. Really key, they have a designated English language development program that's aligned to the ELA program, which we have not had for many years in the district as far as something that was connected that way. We have it at K2, but not at 3-6. And then finally, formative and summative assessments, including assessments that mirror SBAC. For Amplify, excuse me, the core knowledge language arts, I just highlighted, it has some of the same key things. It's aligned with Common Core, but really key, it's aligned to those core knowledge progressions. And those who got to hear Dr. Nelson explain that the other day and how important that is to the core knowledge teachers is very helpful. And then finally, they have the 6th grade program, as I mentioned before, primarily digital program, and both Adams and Beatty have 1-to-1 at their 6th grade, so they're able to implement that program. So, I know we're short on time, so I tried to go quickly. Questions from the board members?
I must tell you that, oh, I'm sorry, we do have questions. Mrs. Lock-Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 questions. One, so are we keeping treasurers in place?
Yes.
Okay, so that'll stay. And how is that aligned with some of these other things that we seem to be okay?
Yeah, and that's a great question. It was written prior to Common Core, so it was a better program than the old Houghton Mifflin that we had, and it's very strong in the foundational skills component. It's a good program. We didn't have enough resources to look at an adoption of K-6, so in LCAP we had allocation for a 3-6 adoption. That's why we focused on 3-6, and also because it's just been so long. We are looking out multiple years for when we might look at a K-2 adoption. It's part of the conversation as we look at other areas that also need new curriculum. So we're having those conversations now. So no guarantees or promises. We haven't made any to the teachers about when we might look at a K-2, but it's certainly on our radar as a consideration. But we just didn't have the funding to do the whole thing, and we had newer curriculum for them, so that's why we made that decision.
Secondly, I got a call from a teacher regarding expansion of our core knowledge program, and that was taken to a school site. Can you fill me in on that a little bit? That was rejected,
Sure.
Or what was the story there?
Yeah, so Franklin Elementary is interested in expanding, going to a core knowledge program as well. And so they are having conversations with their staff about the possibility of doing that. The timing is challenging because we need to order our materials now, and so the recommendation you have tonight is for 28 of our 30 schools to get the McGraw-Hill program, but we're having conversations with Franklin about the possibility of either piloting some of that core knowledge curriculum and looking at that going forward.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lock-Dawson. Mrs. Alavi.
Well, I was just going to say that I really can't fault your process. I mean, it's really, you did it by the book. Isn't that funny? And I really think that you did a great job in terms of getting the groups aligned and getting the teachers on board. I was going to make a motion to approve the purchase instructional material for 3rd to 6th grade.
I'll accept your motion. I'll just make a few comments, if I may, and then I'll second your motion, in fact. Then I'll make a few comments. Very pleased with what I saw. I commend Principal Smith for wanting to take on core knowledge. I think the more that we see this and the more the board can be exposed to what Mrs. Alavi and Dr. Farouk and I saw, maybe one of the goals that we talk about at a retreat would be to have a core knowledge in each trustee area. I got to tell you, until I got to UCLA and actually took a class on the Ottoman Empire, if somebody said that term to me, I thought it was a super furniture store or something. But this was 3rd grade book that talked about the Ottoman Empire, and it actually showed some battle strategies that they had, and all that. It was just phenomenal. So good luck, Mrs. Franklin, and we appreciate you taking it on. And I'll second that, and we have a motion and a second to approve this work. Very good. Ms. Smith, I meant to say, not Mrs. Franklin. All right. So I'm also going to, just by edict, move us another half hour, and we'll keep going here. Is that all right? Or do we have to get home? How are we doing? Are we doing okay? Okay. You have daughters, we understand that. All right. Daughters and gray hair, they go together. Okay. Item I-4, which is a second reading of the Organized Booster Club. I think that's Chief Business Officer, and yes.
Good evening again. This is presented to you as a second reading
If you had a chance to review, you would have noticed some of the changes that we made based on recommendation from a previous board meeting when we had the first reading. So I'd like to address any questions and whether we've incorporated everything that was discussed. We also are giving a transition period up to December for all of them to kind of adhere to our new recommendations and policy changes that we're making.
I did not have any comments on it, and I would move approval in.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second, Mr. Lee. Thank you. Please vote.
Thank you.
All right. So that passes. I'm going to propose that we move items I-5, 6, and 7 to our next agenda, if that's okay with everyone. Dr. Farouk? Everybody good? Okay.
Can I make some suggestions
Yes, ma'am.
for rewording these two policies?
I would be disappointed if you didn't.
All right. Thank you, I will.
Go ahead. You
I will pass them along.
Okay.
For the next meeting.
All right. And so we go to item I-8, which is resolution of the Board of Education recognizing California Day of the Teacher. Do I have a motion? All right.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Alavi, for your second. Please vote. Okay, Mr. Martin, we support you guys. So. Okay. And resolution of the Board of Education, Riverside Unified School District recognizing Classified School Employees Week, which is May 15th through the 21st. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Please vote. Shebang. All right. California Assembly Board, California School Board, Mr. Lee is resigning. We have an opening for the, how long is your term, Mr. Lee, that's left?
I think it's a while.
A while, all right. Mr. Lee.
Yes, with regrets due to some scheduling conflicts and the numerous trips out of the area, I would regretfully ask the board to accept my resignation, and in my place, I would like to nominate President Hunt.
We'll take those steps separately. Do we accept his resignation? I guess we do. And do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. Any other nominations? Hearing none, please vote on the accepting resignation, and Tom Hunt is take his place. There. All right, that carries. We need to go back into closed session on a few items, and but I'm going to. Well, first I'll look for board member comments. I'm sorry, Mrs. Alavi.
None, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Alavi. Mrs. Lock-Dawson. Thank you, Dr. Farouk.
None.
Okay, Mr. Lee, you want to?
I'll go for none.
Well, that gives me a lot of time, so anyhow, get ready. No. All right, so we will tonight, when we do adjourn, I will announce here so everyone knows. We'll adjourn in, first in memory of a friend of all of ours up here. We all served with her at Rain Cross, Miss Sylvia Martin James. She passed away on March 22nd. She was a high school teacher and elementary school principal at RUSD before she retired in 1999. She was also, if I can add, one of the proudest, finest ladies I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. She was the first woman and the first African-American to serve as the UC Riverside Alumni President, and she also served on the University Task Force and the UCR Concerned Citizens Committee. Sylvia served as a mentor to countless children and had a particular interest in working with the disadvantaged youth. One of her proudest achievements was spearheading the building of the Greer Pavilion in 2008, which you're familiar with if you go up the 7th floor of City Hall. I found out by speaking to one of our former board members, Ophelia, that originally they had proposed the Greer name for our district, to have something named after, and a former board turned that down, and on a split vote. And so Sylvia took it to City Hall. So we'll be adjourning in her honor. And also, I'm asking your indulgence, though this young man is not a RUSD graduate, was not an RUSD graduate. He is a West Riverside kid, and maybe just doing this reminds us of what some of our young people face as we head towards graduation and some of the choices they make. Staff Sergeant Lewis F. Carden field artilleryman with the battalion landing team, 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines, was killed last Saturday, or 2 Saturdays ago, when an Islamic State group of militants launched a rocket attack on a coalition base in Maklamar, U.S. military campaign against ISIS. Staff Sergeant Carden was a graduate of Temecula Shrapnel, High, class of 2006, same as my daughter Whitney. So we will adjourn in their memory, and with condolences to you, Dr. Lewis, for your loss this week, all of us. And we'll go to closed session. I'll come back and open it up. Is that everybody?